Well, everyone, as promised, here is my question and answers video. I tried doing it in a similar format to what I've done before, where I'll edit the video down and have, like, music and text showing everybody's names and their questions and everything. But I ran out of time, and yeah, it'd just be easier if I have all the questions written down here and then just read them off and then answer them as we go along. I'll say everybody's name and match everyone up to their questions. And actually, if you want to just go ahead and skip to your question, table of contents down below where you can go ahead and do that. So, because I'm pretty sure this video is going to turn out to be pretty long. So, so nobody's just stuck there waiting for their question to get asked. So, with that, let's get started. Celtic Bird asks his wrestling question: what wrestler, alive or dead, would you like to punch in the face? Chris Benoit. Because he killed his wife and son, and that's not cool. So I think he would kind of deserve a punch in the face. Possibly more, but if it were up to me, I would just punch him in the face. Non-wrestling question. What do you think of Velvet Underground? They're okay. Solid band. I like some of their stuff. Never one of my favorites, though. I can't sit here and say that I love their work or anything. But overall, their stuff is solid, enjoyable overall. Not a whole lot to say other than that, unfortunately. But yeah, Velvet Underground's okay. Rene Valdez, wrestling question: if you were in Gato's role, how would you book Wrestle Kingdom 10? God, it's hard to say. I would, without going into specifics, I would probably make sure that Hanma has a big match that isn't just a throwaway tag match like he normally gets put into. Maybe a never open weight title shot against Togi Makabe. That would be kind of cool. I'd make sure that Kota Ibushi had a big role to play. I would make sure that Naito had a big role to play, given their character developments and what they've done over the course of the year. I would try to switch up the tag matches a little bit so that I'm not just seeing Young Bucks versus Roppongi Vice and Red Dragon for the 80th time. Maybe throw another team in there or do something to freshen it up a little bit. As far as some of the bigger matches, I'd like to see Nakamura versus AJ Styles. I have never seen that match. I'm sure it's happened at some point, but I've never seen it. So I think doing it at the Big Dome show, I think would be kind of cool. The main event, I'm pretty sure, is going to be Okada versus Tanahashi again. This time with Okada going in as the defending champion. But again, we'll see how that all plays out. But yeah, Wrestle Kingdom 10, I hope it's a really good show. So, again, last year's was fantastic, so here's hoping. Non-wrestling question. Thoughts on Legendary Pictures' Skull Island King Kong reboot and a potential King Kong vs. Godzilla remake? I'm fucking down for both of those. I love King Kong, and I've always been a big fan of the original movie, but unfortunately the character over the years has never really been... never really gotten reused well a lot. Actually, King Kong vs. Godzilla, the Toho version from the early 60s, is probably the second best, or at least it was the second best version of Kong up until the Peter Jackson remake. Which, that's another thing. King Kong has been remade two times, once in the 70s and the Peter Jackson version. The 70s version is meh. And the Jackson version is really good and faithful. It's too goddamn long. But the problem with all of it is that with Kong, they just keep revisiting the same tropes and the same story over and over. And I would like to see them do something different with Kong. So doing what appears to be an entire reboot that's set entirely on Skull Island and possibly doing some different explorations there, I think that's great. And I think it's a chance to do something different with Kong and present him in a new light and hopefully freshen him up a little bit. And as for a King Kong vs. Godzilla remake, I am so fucking down for that. That's not even bring it on. I am so excited for that possibility because of all the Godzilla movies that ever got made, the one that I always wanted a remake to, even when I was a kid, was King Kong vs. Godzilla because it was the first Godzilla movie I ever saw. It was my introduction to the character, and I always enjoyed it and appreciated it for that. But when I went back and watched it as an adult, it's intentionally comical, and I would have liked to have seen a King Kong versus Godzilla movie in the same vein as Godzilla versus The Thing or Mothra versus Godzilla, which is one of the best. I would have liked to have seen something like that. So, and if Skull Island works out well, And Godzilla's already gotten a good reboot with the first Legendary Pictures film, so there's a lot of potential there, I think. So I'm totally stoked, and I'm fully accepting of a King Kong versus Godzilla remake. So yeah, let's do that. All right, Afro Thunder asks his wrestling question: if you were in Vince's role, what 3 things would you change? I would shorten Raw down. I would stop being so repetitive. I would leave guys off TV, not force them to be on TV every single week. I would find ways and do things to kind of scale back and not feel so repetitive, because one of the major problems with Raw is that they feel the need to put out big tag team main events and big title matches and all this other stuff every single week, and when you do that, those matches become less special, and when everything becomes less special, the show just becomes a bore to watch. So I think scaling back and making those big matches actually mean something would be something that I would strive to do. I would also try to put in more of a sports logic into the show. I've talked about this before, but NXT has that for the most part. Building up guys as contenders through winning matches. That's like a very basic concept, but one that the WWE seems to struggle with a lot. So, those are probably the 3 things that I would at least try to implement. And they're not really very specific. They're very general concepts, but I would make plans to make those things happen. Obviously, shortening Raw, that's a very obvious one, and even Triple H said that himself. So, those are 3 things I would change. All right, a non-wrestling question. What one movie can you watch over and over? There are a lot of movies I can watch over and over. Rocky, Star Wars, Die Hard, Terminator 2, the Indiana Jones movies, the good ones, Raiders and Last Crusade, Back to the Future, Ghostbusters, a bunch of monster movies. There's a lot of movies I can watch over and over again. Star Wars is probably the movie I've watched the most, and when I say Star Wars, I mean the entire trilogy. It was just such a big part of my childhood that I can revisit those movies almost any time, and they'll always be good. Even the shitty special editions, which... why we can't have a big Blu-ray release of the original trilogy, I don't understand. Thanks, George. Thanks for that one. But yeah, Star Wars is something, that's a movie I can watch over and over again. And I have watched it over and over again without getting bored with it. All right, AziaXtremeInphinity. Wrestling question: if Cena turns heel, how would you feel if he had a Raven punk-like cult leader type character? Honestly, if I were going to turn Cena heel, I would change almost nothing. I would just let him be what he is now and just have him work with baby faces. And because the character is such a douchebag and such an insincere, piece of shit that he basically already is a heel in my eyes. So I think just keeping him the same but having him work with faces would work just fine. Just let it have that insincerity in it, or that the squeaky clean image that they want us to think John Cena has. Present him in a way where we're supposed to recognize that he doesn't have those things. He's really kind of a phony baloney corporate piece of shit. But that's what I would do with the Cena character. Making him a Raven-like character, I don't think Cena could pull that off. I could be wrong, but he doesn't look the part, and based on what I've seen from him, I don't see anything that would make me believe that he could pull it off. Okay. Non-wrestling question. What if the next Star Wars trilogy took place 1 million years after this new trilogy? I guess that would be interesting, except it would probably run into the same problem that Phantom Menace ran into, where Phantom Menace, my biggest problem with Phantom Menace, bigger than Jake Lloyd and Jar Jar Binks and even midichlorians, my biggest problem with it was that it happened so early in the timeline that it feels so far removed from anything that we recognize as Star Wars. And it doesn't look like Star Wars. It's like, okay, the music's there, and I see lightsabers, and they talk about the Force, although their explanation of the Force is bullshit, but it didn't feel like Star Wars, and it felt like it was completely separate from anything that we ever knew as Star Wars. Now, to play devil's advocate a little bit, George Lucas also wanted to show how a pristine, perfect society would fall due to crooked politicians, and how war would tear down democracy or whatever, and all this other themes that he wanted to get in there. So, all right, I can kind of understand the thought process there, but I don't know. So if you set the new trilogy, the trilogy after the next, assuming Disney wants to keep it going that long, which knowing them, they probably will. If they set it 1 million years in the future, it would probably look absolutely nothing like anything that we know as Star Wars, which could be, not that that's a bad thing, but you run the risk of presenting something that's completely unrecognizable. So that's something to be careful with. Hightide C22. Wrestling question. How would you book the main event to Ultima Lucha 2 next season? There's a lot of different possibilities they could do. Apparently they're getting Rey Mysterio. I mean, everybody keeps saying that they're going to get Rey Mysterio, which that opens up some possibilities. I'm already thinking like Pentagon Jr. versus Prince Puma or Drago, or Mil Muertes versus versus Rey Mysterio. I don't know if Johnny Mundo would fit in there anywhere. Maybe. See, there's so many possibilities. I'm not sure. One that I would be interested in personally, kind of evil versus evil, Pentagon Jr. versus Mil Muertes for the Lucha Underground Championship. I think that would be a really interesting match to do, and they've got to cross paths at some point. So that one would be fun. But Ultima Lucha, as long as they keep a lot of the same guys that they've been that they presented through season 1, I think there's a lot of possibilities, and I think they can do a lot of things. So a lot of options there. Non-wrestling question. Have you ever watched Doctor Who, and who's your favorite Doctor? I have never watched Doctor Who. Everybody keeps telling me it's great. I know enough about it to where I get the basic gist of it. I understand the concept of it, but I've never actually watched it. Part of me just kind of feels like, look, it's 50 years worth of material that I just don't feel like dedicating an entire lifetime to getting caught up on. So, and I'm sure it's really good. Everybody tells me it's really good. It's just that I feel like I'm so far behind that it's just, I don't really feel up to it. Maybe one day. But a funny story, actually. I had a girl reject me once because I don't watch Doctor Who. She's like, it'll never work between us because you don't watch Doctor Who. And I was like, well, I mean, it's not like I reject the idea of watching Doctor Who. It's just, I've never watched it before, but apparently that was a turnoff for her. So that was fun. Okay, Cogan Spoerry. Wrestling question. Where did WWE go wrong with the Who Ran Over Stone Cold Steve Austin storyline, and how would you have booked it? Very good question. The Who Ran Over Stone Cold Steve Austin storyline, to me, was one of the first major dents in the armor of the WWE, because throughout '98 they were red hot and the Attitude Era really caught on, and that was when they started to really take over WCW and ultimately win the war. '99, peaks and valleys. Some of the stuff they wrote wasn't very good, but they were kind of riding the high from '98, and they just kept growing and growing and growing, where WCW just kept failing and failing. And then in 2000, they were putting on exciting television almost every week. The roster was the best it had ever been, and it was almost like the WWF could do no wrong. And then you get to the Who Ran Over Stone Cold Steve Austin storyline, and that kind of went out with a wet fart, and it's like, that didn't go as well as it should have. And also the Triple H, Stephanie, Kurt Angle love triangle that they did, that one also kind of petered out and didn't really get the conclusion that it should have. And that was also kind of worrying. It was like, what happened? It's like you're botching these big storylines. But with the Who Ran Over Austin storyline, the reveal itself was great. I had no problem with Rikishi being the guy. The timeline of when he debuted as Rikishi and when Austin got hit and everything, it kind of matched up pretty well, so it almost gave off the impression that they had planned this from the beginning. He'd gotten over as a big babyface throughout all of 2000. Then Austin comes back, and it's ultimately revealed that Rikishi was the one that did it, and he did it full of rock. But, people make fun of it, but back then, I thought it was a really good reveal, and when they explained his motivations for doing what he did, and he's like, he wanted to get a Samoan guy at the top level, and to help Rock reach that, he had to get rid of Stone Cold Steve Austin, because the WWF at the time was all about the Great White Hope, and he talked about all the quote, Island Boys that should have been world champion and never got a shot. And it felt legitimate. It felt like he legitimately felt angry about what was going on there, and it was a motivation that made sense. And it kind of felt like, yeah, this is actually a pretty tastefully done racism storyline in terms of the character motivations. It doesn't feel cartoonish. It doesn't feel forced. It doesn't feel... it felt human and natural, and that only made the conflict that much more interesting. It made the hatred between Austin and Rikishi feel even more real. And I thought all of that stuff leading into the No Mercy match was really good. The problem was that Austin utterly destroyed Rikishi. I mean, just absolutely just destroyed him. And then every other babyface, from Undertaker to Rock and everybody else in between, they all kicked his ass and beat him down. So when your big bad heel never wins, the storyline is fucked. And that's basically what happened. The storyline was fucked, and eventually they just said, oh, well, Rikishi did it, but Triple H told him to do it, which kind of went against the whole racism thing that they were doing. And everything just went right back to Triple H, and wow, that was that was an omen of things to come, wasn't it? But yeah, it was just disappointing because I thought they had a really nice idea. It was a fresh pairing, it was fresh storyline direction, and then they just dropped it, and I was okay, and I just shrugged my shoulders, and it was just like, man, they should have just revealed it was Triple H from the very beginning and not even done the whole thing with Rikishi. And Rikishi never recovered from it, even after they turned him back to a babyface again. He just kind of went back to being the dancing fat guy, and he never was taken seriously again, and I thought that was a shame. And I thought Rikishi did quite well in the role. I thought when he first turned heel and he was all nasty and everything, and you know, I think he did an interview with JR where he talked about how he would slap Stone Cold Steve Austin down like the dog that he is and all this other stuff, and he was happy about what he did and everything. Again, it felt it felt real, felt human, and I really dug it initially, and I thought they had a good idea there, and then they just flushed it down the drain. It was a shame. It was a shame. You know, that Rikishi was very good. That's another thing that people forget. The dancing fat guy thing, like, you know, like when the Funkasaurus was around, I always tell people, it's like, guys, you better, if you think that this is good, you better enjoy it while it lasts, because it's going to get old really quick. And I remember when the Funkasaurus debuted, and everybody on the internet was like, ha, it's funny, it's great, this is a great gimmick. And, well, not everybody. There were people like me that said it was stupid, but there were other people that said, oh, no, it's great, you guys need to lighten up. And I made the point, it's like, guys, they're going to do this every week, and you'll be sick of it by WrestleMania. And sure enough, everybody was kind of sick of it by WrestleMania. And Rikishi kind of had that same thing going for him, where every week it was just him doing the dance every week. But what Rikishi had is that they legitimately built him up as a badass, where he could hang with guys like Triple H and The Big Show and Kane and other guys like that. And he could legitimately hang with those guys. And he actually beat Triple H clean on an episode of SmackDown once, if I'm not mistaken. So, yeah, they've done a pretty good job of building credibility into Rikishi, even under the umbrella of this kind of silly cartoon character Fat Man gimmick. And, you know, he had that match with Val Venus where he dove off the steel cage and all kinds of crazy stuff. And Rikishi was a really good worker. And for somebody as big as him at the time to move as well as he did and do super kicks and all this other crazy stuff, it was all about, like, you know, it was like, wow, Rikishi's actually really good. And they developed his character into this badass monster heel, and that made him even better. And then they pulled the plug on it. I don't know. I don't get it. Okay, and your non-wrestling question, what did you think of the Godfather films? I kind of view, I might get in trouble when I say this, but I kind of view the Godfather, especially the first movie, the way I look at Ric Flair. And what I mean by that is, you know, for years everyone told me that Ric Flair was unquestionably the greatest of all time, and I kind of looked at it and I'm like, based on what? How is he the unquestioned? You can think he's the greatest, that's fine, but this whole, like, unquestionably, you're wrong if you say otherwise, he's the greatest of all time. And I'm like, no, like, I don't think he's the best promo guy. I always like Jake Roberts and Raven and Mick Foley, those type of guys. I always preferred those guys on the stick. Best matches? I always preferred Randy Savage or Ricky Steamboat, or even in the Four Horsemen, I always liked Arn Anderson's style more. I liked his in-ring style a lot more than Flair's, but so it was kind of like, yeah, Ric Flair is one of the greatest, but the unquestionable he is the greatest. and you're stupid if you don't agree. I never bought into that. And I'm kind of the same way with The Godfather. Is it a great movie? Yes. Is it well directed, well acted, well written? Yes. All around. Is it the greatest movie ever made? I don't know. I personally, I don't even think it's the best mob movie ever made. I think Goodfellas is way better. I think better characters, more quotable, more realistic. I think because and not that I'm knocking it here, but Coppola's film, The Godfather, was very operatic and very kind of larger than life, and almost had like a kind of a fantasy element to it. Not straight up fantasy, but it had like a somewhat of a heightened reality to it, whereas Goodfellas felt very real, down and dirty, gritty, and I preferred that. While also both films do a very good job of making that lifestyle seem appealing, while also acknowledging that it will destroy you. And even Scarface I would throw up there as a really good example of that as well. But The Godfather, it's a very good movie. I think the sequel is just as good, if not better. I think both films are great. I've never seen the third one. I've been told it's garbage. It's kind of become the butt of many jokes. But I can't say if I didn't see it. So it's one of those things. But it just feels like with The Godfather, if you ask people what their favorite movie is, and especially actors, they will all say The Godfather, it feels. And I'm like, come on, there's no way all of you think that The Godfather is the greatest movie ever. And it just feels like a lot of people say that because they don't want to sound stupid. Or I don't know. Maybe they legitimately all feel that way. But when I think of the best movies ever made, I have my favorites, obviously, like Rocky, a lot of the Scorsese films, Raging Bull, Taxi Driver, Goodfellas, I just put that over. Shawshank, a bunch of movies like that, and even like my action movies and my horror movies that I really like. I would say that I enjoy watching a lot of those more than I enjoy watching The Godfather. But Godfathers 1 and 2 are very, very good. Definitely worthy of praise. They're not my favorite movies of all time, like they are for a lot of people, and and I might get in trouble for saying that, but it is what it is. Okay, page 1 is done. All right. Fernando Estrada, wrestling question: should Jimmy Snuka be removed from the Hall of Fame? If they're going to be consistent and if they're going to remove Hulk Hogan from the Hall of Fame, then yes. Yes. Because the whole justification of Hulk Hogan being removed was the public relations nightmare of Hulk Hogan dropping the N-word and being on that sex tape and all that other stuff, and WWE doesn't want to be associated with that. Well, Jimmy Snuka is going to be tried for murder, so do you really want to be associated with that? So yes, I think he should. If just for the sake of staying consistent, yes. Just for, to be fair. Non-wrestling question. Why aren't the Joe Montana era 49ers also considered cheaters, even though there are examples of them coming out and admitting that they cheated, namely Jerry Rice? Probably because there wasn't social media back then, and it wasn't, public outcry wasn't as, there wasn't as much of a high volume of complaining. Like Deflategate this year became such a big thing, and people were talking about it constantly on Facebook, Twitter, and all sorts of other things. So that kind of gave it a life on its own, and the whole meme machine, and GIFs and memes all being posted all over the place. That kind of continues the legacy and continues the life of it. I think maybe because the 49ers weren't around back in that era, or maybe the 49ers weren't around in the social media era that we have now, it probably just kind of got, if it got acknowledged, it just kind of faded away, not long afterward. It just didn't stick and become a part of their legacy. So I think that might have had something to do with it. But okay. And Ase One, wrestling question: what are the most tasteless WWE moments? The obvious ones: Mae Young giving birth to a hand, the Katie Vick, just necrophilia, baby. I throw hot lesbian action up there because that was just the most blatant ploy for ratings I have ever seen, and it was disgusting. It was like, and not that I'm a homophobic person or anything, and two chicks making out, what's to get upset about? To me, it was just so trashy, and so we are using this for the sole purpose of getting ratings, and that to me is just pathetic. I think that is just lame, pathetic, and just at the time it was just them grabbing at straws to keep keep, attention on themselves and keep the ratings up. So I wasn't a fan of that one either. I kind of felt the same way about the gay wedding, which was clearly just a ploy for attention. And they even chickened out at the end. And I was like, dude, if you're going to do the gay wedding, go all the way with it. They pussied out. They pussied the fuck out. Like, oh my God, they chickened out at the end. All that hype, and they didn't even go through with it. It's like, okay, sure thing. But anyway, that's what happened there. But, Okay, non-wrestling question. Most obscure superhero or comic book character that you like? I always like the question. He's not one of the more famous ones, but I always like the question. If you don't know who the question is, basically he's... Rorschach from Watchmen is basically based off him, and that's the best way I can explain him. He was just, a detective that was a bit high-strung and had the blank face mask and everything, and it was just a fun character. I really liked that. I really liked how he was represented in Justice League Unlimited, the animated show. I thought they did a great job bringing him to life in there, and he just kind of this, again, very high-strung, very crazy detective person, and just very enjoyable. It was just a very fun character. So, and he also seemed to be like cut out of the same cloth of like the Dick Tracy characters, like. Dick Tracy kind of lived in a world of these deformed, crazy gangsters, and the question seemed to be like a crazy, deformed detective or whatever. So, I always liked the question. That was always one that I always liked. And I'm going to mispronounce this one, but strahinjagov, wrestling question. Do you think pairing Reigns with Ambrose has helped him? It's helped him and hindered him. It's helped him in the sense that it paired him with somebody that the fans like, so the reactions to Roman Reigns haven't been as negative. But it also has been a negative because him and Ambrose are wrestling the exact same fucking matches every single week, so it's just made him boring and repetitive. So it's been kind of like 6 in one, half a dozen in the other. So it's, they're not booing him out of the building anymore. At least it doesn't appear that they are, but they don't really seem to care all that much about him because every time he shows up, they just do the same things anyway, so it doesn't really matter. But non-wrestling question, why do you wear sunglasses in your videos? I've explained this before, but the reason I wear sunglasses in my videos is because if you see my eyes in videos where I'm not wearing the sunglasses, my eyes are kind of darting all over the place, and I actually learned this trick from Bret Hart. It's why Bret Hart wore sunglasses during his promos. If I have the sunglasses on, you can't see my eyes kind of darting all over the place. And it's because I remember when I filmed my first video, I did it the first take I did it without sunglasses, and my eyes were just going all over the place. And I could train myself not to do that, but it's just easier to just wear sunglasses. So I get asked about that a lot, and that's the same answer I always give. It's like, I stole from Bret Hart. That's that's my answer. All right, Dragon Rider 951. If you were making videos in 2006 and you made a video review of Royal Rumble 2006 immediately after the show, what would the video have been like? Let me tell you what that video would have been like. That is a great question. I would have sat here and ranted like a crazy person about how that was one of the worst shows I have ever seen. That is, honest to God, a horrible, horrible pay-per-view. The Rumble match itself was fine. That was the only thing on the show that was any good. But you had JBL versus the Boogeyman. You had, I think it was Ashley Massaro versus Mickie James, and that match was shitty. You had a cruiserweight match that was whatever, take it or leave it. I think there was one other shitball match on there. And then they did the Rumble, and then they did their 2 title matches after the Rumble. I was like, okay, that's not going to work. They did John Cena versus Edge, which I was like, that's a little too soon to be doing that rematch, because I thought after Edge won the title through the Money in the Bank, it was going to be Edge and Cena at Mania, and I thought they were going to run with Edge as the heel champion. And I was like, that's what they should do. He's the top heel right now. He's the most interesting character. Did the whole live sex celebration thing, and that was awesome. A lot of people say that was shitty. I'm like, no, that was great, because that was great. It fit Edge's character. And, yes, of course he would do something like that. The motherfucker stole Matt Hardy's girlfriend, got him fired, nothing bad happened to him, and then he fucked her on live TV. That right after he stole the title. I'm like, oh my God, you've got the best heel in the business right now. This is fucking great. So I thought they were going to really run with Edge as the top guy. And so when they signed the rematch for the Royal Rumble, you know, this was kind of before, we were all, like, sick of Cena at this point, but this was before the kind of Cena wins LOL phase. I mean, yeah, he'd been champion after WrestleMania and he'd won all of his matches, but they were in matches that we knew he was going to win. So it was kind of like, okay, fine. They were all like, okay, Jericho's not going to beat him and Angle's not going to beat him. We know that. So it was just kind of like, you just shrug your shoulders and just go, they're running with the top guy. But when they stumbled onto something this hot with Edge, I was like, all right, they're going to run with him till Mania. If Cena wins the title back, fine, I'll deal with it. But do it at Mania. And that's what my thought process was. And then you get to the Royal Rumble and Cena wins the fucking title back. And I'm like, why? What point did that serve? What? No, you have the hottest heel in the business right here. What? No! And then to find out later that it was all done so that Edge could work with Mick Foley, which I think even Foley said at some point, it's like, I don't know why Edge is working with me. He should be the main eventing this fucking thing. He doesn't need a rub from me, but okay. I mean, they went out there and stole the fucking show anyway, but... and I think after that WrestleMania happened, they realized their mistake and just gave Edge the spot he should have had all along. But they did it just to do John Cena versus Triple H. And I was like, okay, number one, I'm bored with Triple H as a heel. Number two, I'm bored with Cena as a babyface. And I never liked him as a babyface to begin with. So why the fuck should I care? And so Edge got flushed down the toilet just so we could get this main event that I did not want in any way, shape, or form. And then you get to WrestleMania itself, and I fucking hate it. I've gone on several rants about this match. I fucking hate that match like nobody's business. And if you want, I'll do another video explaining why I hate that fucking match so much. But in any case, it was so infuriating that they did what they did that if I had done a video review back then talking about Royal Rumble 2006, I would have ranted like a lunatic talking about how this is like the dumbest thing WWE's done in a long time. And not only that, but the main event of the show was Kurt Angle versus Mark Henry, in which the crowd started leaving. I don't think I have ever seen that during a pay-per-view before, but the crowd actually got up and started leaving during that match. So that's how bad that was. And why did they do it? They did it so that Undertaker could do this weird entrance where he could come in and blow the ring up. So that match had to go on last. And that was why they did it. I'm like, did Undertaker have to blow the ring up? Is that something you had to do? I mean, I don't think anybody thought of Kurt Angle versus Mark Henry as a main event, so I don't know why they did that. It was it was bad. It was really bad. But yeah, that's... And I guess you basically just got to look at what that video would have looked like. But yeah, it would have been something if I had been making videos back then. All right, non-wrestling question: how would you go about a King Kong versus Godzilla remake? Well, I've already kind of talked about it a little bit, but I would. One thing I would do, I would keep it in the tone of like Godzilla versus the Thing, Godzilla versus Mothra from 1964, or something like Godzilla versus Biollante, or even last year's Legendary Pictures Godzilla film. He's like, not take it too seriously, but try and build it like a serious fight between these two and not be so comical with it like the original 1960s version was. That's what I would do. As for plots and characters, I would definitely involve Ken Watanabe. I've said before that his character in the last year's Godzilla remake he needs to stick around and be the Dr. Loomis of the legendary Godzilla films, because he's kind of the spokesperson for the monster, and I really like that kind of set up there. So I would love for Ken Watanabe to come back. They could even do something story-wise where maybe Godzilla and King Kong team up. I think that would be pretty cool. We've never seen that before. We've seen them fight, but we've never seen them team up before. Put them up against a monster that's more powerful than both of them, so they have to join forces to stop it. Destroya, maybe. I'm just throwing ideas out there. That'd be kind of cool. But in any case, yeah, there's plenty of things they can do with the King Kong vs. Godzilla remake. I wouldn't want it to be exactly like the 1960s version. I would want it to be its own movie, to stand on its own, and just do that. All right, Superkick85. Who are your favorite indie stars right now? It's hard to say because the indie scene has kind of been bled dry when you look at who's in NXT and you look at who's in Ring of Honor. Is Ring of Honor really an indie at this point? Yeah, I would say guys like Jay Lethal and Tommaso Ciampa, and who I didn't like at first initially, but he's kind of grown on me. Johnny Gargano, Michael Elgin, none of the New Japan. See, the New Japan guys, I don't look at them as indie guys. That's the thing. Red Dragon, all those other guys, all very talented, but I have a hard time seeing them as indie guys. So it's really hard to say. And outside of that, I can't really think of too many guys that I would straight up consider both consider indie guys and also excuse me. Also, that I would like to see in the WWE. So it's kind of a hard question to answer because I feel like most of the best talent is already elsewhere. So it's kind of hard to say. Non-wrestling. What are the dumbest plays you've seen in football? Well, being a Giants fan, I've had my experience with some pretty stupid plays, like the Deshaun Jackson run back punt return, the Pisarcek fumble, which happened before I was born, but still somehow hurts me. Like, it's really weird. I somehow have a memory of the Pisarcek fumble, even though it happened before I was born. It's the weirdest fucking thing. Like, that's how bad that play hurt me. The fucking botched field goal during the 49ers playoff game where we blew a 28-point lead and it came down to a fucking botched field goal. And people say the refs botched the call, but, Giants blew a 28-point lead. I don't fucking care. It's like you should have never been in a position where one bad call could cost you the game. So as a Giants fan, I've seen a lot of stupid plays. One play that was not a Giants play, although the Giants did play in this game, that really stood out to me as one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. It was while Zorn was coaching the Washington Redskins, and we were playing them one night, and he set up for the swinging gate formation, and as part of like a trick play or something. Coughlin called a timeout to prepare for the play so they couldn't like run the play or whatever, do whatever trickety trick they were going to do. And it's like, all right, they did the timeout and they got their shit together, got their personnel together. It's like, all right, we're prepared for the swinging gate play and they're not going to trick us. Jim Zorn, what's his name, Jim? Zorn, I just called him Zorn. But Zorn has the Redskins set up in that same swinging gate formation, which looked ridiculous, by the way. And the announcers were like, why are they going for it again? The Giants are already prepared for it. And sure enough, the play didn't work, and it was a disaster, and it was embarrassing, and it's one of the strangest, like, weirdest coaching calls I've ever seen. The play probably wouldn't have worked anyway, and even if it did have a chance to work, the fact that the Giants called a timeout and were able to prepare for it, and they ran the play anyway, just boggled my mind. I was like, okay, that was stupid, but yeah, those are some of the dumb ones that stick out to me. All right, Seth Wayne. All right, wrestling question. Who would you like to see come back and become a full-timer in the WWE? See, I'm the type of guy that's always on the lookout for who are the new guys. Like, who are the new guys out there that you can push, create, and make new stars out of. As far as like, I want this guy to return and have another run. I'm like, it's kind of like most of those guys, I've already seen them at their best, so why would I want to see them come back and not look as good and get like big pushes and runs and whatever. AJ Styles in the WWE, I think, would be really interesting if they were able to get him. I'm not sure if they would push him correctly, but it'd be cool. You'd get a lot of good matchups out of AJ, I think. And he's probably the number one guy that I would really enjoy seeing. Maybe some New Japan guys. But again, I don't know how they would fit into the WWE system. Guys like Okada, Nakamura, and Tanahashi, and Makabe, and Ishii and Naito, and all those other guys. But it's hard to say because I'm always wondering who the new guys are going to be and what new things can they come up with rather than constantly going back to the past. Non-wrestling. What are some of your favorite websites? I love crack.com. Well, a lot of the lists they post I think are really funny. YouTube, obviously. I'm obviously on YouTube a lot. Even though their copyright rules have gotten ridiculous. I'm on Facebook and Twitter, but I don't really like them. I have them out of necessity to, like, A, remember, keep in contact with people, and B, remember birthdays. But other than that, I'm not a big social media guy. What's some other websites I like? Cracked is probably my big one. Cinemassacre.com. I've been watching the Angry Video Game Nerd for a long time, and it's October, so he's doing Monster Madness again, so that's really cool as well. But yeah, those are some of my favorite websites. Also Amazon. Love Amazon. I do most of my birthday and Christmas shopping through Amazon, and they've never let me down. So good on them. Jake Owens, wrestling question. Does it bother you that pay-per-view sets look the same as Raws now? Yeah, it kind of does. It's a small thing, but back in the day, like, they used to put a lot of work into making the pay-per-view sets look different from what you would see on TV. And WCW had, like, all these really crazy sets for their pay-per-views, and they looked very colorful and lively. It made it look like you were watching something different from what you would normally see on Monday Night for free. And now the pay-per-views look identical to Raw, and it's just kind of like, it's a small thing, but it enhances the kind of monotony and stagnation that's going on with modern day wrestling. So, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is. Non-wrestling question: would Roger Goodell be the reason you stop watching football in the NFL? No, I mean, he's an idiot, but it would have to take a lot for me to not want to watch football. So Roger Goodell, being as stupid as he is, isn't gonna change that. So that's that. All right, the RV1 HD wrestling question: do you think SmackDown being such a throwaway show affects the quality of Raw? I think it makes Raw harder to write because it's just 2 more hours of content that they got to fill, and I'm sure they probably just do a lot of the same matches that you see on Raw every week, or some paramutation of it. I'm sure SmackDown doesn't help, but yeah, it's probably a factor. Again, it's just having so much content to fill. And they've done. Have they done anything with SmackDown? I haven't watched SmackDown in years, so I don't know like what's going on over there. And to me, if anything ever does happen on SmackDown, they just recap it on Raw anyway. So what's the point of watching it? And never anything that interesting happens on SmackDown anyway. At least based on just reading results and watching the recaps on Raw, which I barely watch Raw anymore. So. What do you think of Conor McGregor's interview skills? He's kind of got a pro wrestling vibe to him for an MMA fighter. And, a lot of people say that UFC took the pro wrestling formula and just adapted it to a real sport, which is got some truth to it, probably. Conor McGregor, he's just a lively personality, and he's fun to watch, for sure. So, yeah, he's an interesting character. I kind of enjoy watching him. The Savvy Yes Man wrestling question. Would you be if you were a wrestler, would you be a face or a heel, and what would your gimmick be? I don't know what my gimmick would be. I would rather be a heel, definitely, because the heels get better material. At least they should get better material. They get to kind of control the flow of the match. They get to do, be nasty. I mean, it's like actors. Most actors will tell you they enjoy playing bad guys because it's just more fun. And it's cathartic in a way, is that you can get out all your aggressions and all your frustrations and just by being this absolutely nasty person. So, whereas if you're a babyface, you kind of have to be on 24/7 because you've got all these kids that look up to you and all this other stuff, and you might be tired that day, and some little 5-year-old walks up and asks for an autograph, and you've got to be you always have to be on, which is something that I'll give Cena credit for, definitely, but. I would much rather be a heel. I think it would be just much easier and a lot more fun in terms of how you perform in front of the audience. Like look at what Sasha Banks did at NXT TakeOver. She made a kid cry. I mean, she made a kid cry, and it made the story even better. A babyface can't do that. So that's one of those things. Non-wrestling question: how excited are you for Batman vs Superman: Dawn of Justice? I wouldn't say I'm excited for it. I want it to be good. I hope it's good. Based on what I've seen so far, I still don't know what to really think of it. Some of it looks good. Ben Affleck doesn't look terrible as Batman. I mean, and I wasn't really worried about him anyway. I never understood the hatred that Ben Affleck got, to be perfectly honest. I never saw him as being that bad of an actor. He was just in really shitty movies. There's the difference. And then he started making movies like Argo, and he did great. It's like, yeah, he's fine. Ben Affleck's fine. I was more worried about Jesse Eisenberg as Lex Luthor, because I just can't see that at all. And the trailer, he looked every bit as bad as I feared he would be. The red capes are coming. Oh, God, you look awful. I'm going to hate you. And, not good. No bueno. No bueno. But we'll see how the movie turns out. We still got a few months to go. I hope it's good. It's Batman and Superman sharing a movie together, which has never happened before. So that's a big deal to me. So it better be good. It's one of those. And again, Man of Steel. I didn't hate Man of Steel. I didn't love it either, but I didn't hate it. I was one of the few that was more in the middle. I was like, all right, there's room for improvement, but it wasn't the worst Superman movie by any means. Superman 4. So I wouldn't say Superman Returns. I thought it was better than Superman Returns. So yeah, here I hope. One can hope, but then again, you never really know. So yeah. And Marvel Antonio, wrestling question: how would you have booked the Divas Revolution, and would Bayley have been included? How I would have booked it, I would have started off right from scratch. Like, all right, we need to establish personalities. We need to establish characters. That involves promos, video packages, and squash matches. And yes, I know everybody goes nuts over squash matches and they like say, oh, it's boring TV. No, they're character builders because you're making somebody look good. And then you build up to your big matches down the road. Paige needs teammates, so she's the one that goes out and gets Charlotte and Becky. And then because she went out and got teammates from NXT, Naomi goes, well, you know what? I need to get somebody too. So she goes out and gets Sasha. And that should have been maybe 2 or 3 weeks worth of television, as opposed to Stephanie just being like, oh, by the way, you've got teammates now and you've got teammates now. Divas matter again! And doing that whole thing. It's like, no, you got to put a little bit more work into it than that. And that's what I would have done. I would have like slowed the pace down and not had the same tag matches every week, and made sure it's like, all right, we're going to do this Paige heel turn at some point and make sure we build up that character development. Maybe we'll have Sasha take over and be the leader of Team Bad, or want to be the leader of Team Bad because of how good she is. So we'll make that a thing. Try to establish different characters and different personalities from this rather than just, just having this endless series of tag matches that don't mean anything. And would I have included Bayley? Probably not, because she's due for a big run on NXT, and I would have been like, no, let her have a run on NXT, see how she does, and then wait a while before we bring her up. So I wouldn't have brought her up as part of this initial phase of the Divas Revolution, but let her have a run on NXT as champion, because you need her there, because if you're moving up those three, Charlotte, Becky, and Sasha, then you really need Bayley to stay there and be kind of the crown jewel of the women's division down there. So, yeah, it's just basic storytelling mechanics that they kind of messed up from the beginning that needed to be implemented from the start, and that's what I would have worked to have set up. All right, non-wrestling question. What are your top 5 favorite rock bands ever? Well, when I was a kid, I was a big Kiss fan, and I've always had an appreciation for Kiss because of that. And their live albums are great. Like, their studio stuff is like, it's all right, but their live stuff, the Alive albums are great. Like, I really love those. AC/DC is my favorite band of all time. They're fantastic. I love their shit. Back in Black is my favorite album ever. The Beatles are classic. Love them. I love The Doors. I love Led Zeppelin. Queen is great. What are some other ones I really like? Van Halen I like. Whitesnake. Poison's very good. Black Sabbath is really good. Did I say Zeppelin? I should have. If I didn't say Zeppelin, yeah, Led Zeppelin. Yeah, those are all my favorite rock bands, I think. So any 5 of that group would be there. I would say Kiss, AC/DC, Queen, Zeppelin, and the Beatles. That would probably be my top 5. But yeah, I mean, any of those bands are totally awesome anyway. So it's all good. Oh, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers, I also really like them. They're another very good one. All right, We Are Pro Wrestling asks, wrestling question: pick your poison. John Cena versus Randy Orton for the WWE title in the main event of WrestleMania 32, or Randy Orton versus Sheamus in a 60-minute Iron Man match on next week's Raw. That question is completely evil, and you're evil for asking it. No, seriously. God, both of those would be horrible. But if I had to endure one, it would be Randy Orton and Sheamus in the Iron Man match on Raw, because there will be commercial breaks, and it'll be on Raw, so it'll be forgotten after a while. No matter how bad it is, we'll be able to move past it. You put Cena and Orton in the main event of a WrestleMania, especially in 2016, after we've already seen the match 8 billion times. No, that's inexcusable. just not. You do not have that be the main event of your biggest show of the year. No. So yeah, I would endure the Iron Man match before enduring another Cena Orton match in the main event at WrestleMania. Non-wrestling question. Most obnoxious sports fans. Growing up in the Washington D.C. era, growing up in the Washington D.C. area, Washington Redskins fans were always kind of cool to me and never really were bothered by the fact that I was a Giants fan. However, the Cowboys fans that live in this area are complete douchebags. I can't stand them. I really can't stand them. And they're just egotistical. My team's the best, even though we haven't done anything in 2 decades. And, what the fuck ever. I always have to hear about it. It's almost like they walk around with this sense of entitlement that because they support the Dallas Cowboys, they deserve success. And no, that's not how it works. And that's the good thing about being a Giants or a Redskins fan, is that you learn humility pretty quick, I feel. You would think that the Cowboys would have learned humility by now, but no, they're still living in the past. Cowboys fans that live around this area are kind of annoying. And there are a lot more of them than you would expect, believe it or not. Alright, Dalyxman, wrestling question. Have you seen Hulk Hogan's apology video? Do you forgive him, and should he be brought back to the WWE? I have seen the video. I think he will be brought back to the WWE at some point. Time heals all wounds. And, if the Ultimate Warrior will come back, I think Hulk Hogan, give it some time, Hulk Hogan will eventually come back. Do I forgive him? I kind of feel like it's not my place to forgive him because he didn't hurt me. What he said was wrong, but I was also kind of understanding that he said it behind closed doors in a conversation that he said was private at a point in his life when he was angry and frustrated. I have said some shit behind closed doors that I wouldn't want people to know about. Just as an example, I got dumped by this girl once, and I immediately called up a friend of mine, and I said every vile thing you could possibly think of. All right, the see you next Tuesday word was the tip of the iceberg. I went, all out crazy, the most hateful things I've ever said about anybody, ever. Considering that we share mutual friends and, and various other things like that, personal reasons, I wouldn't want that conversation to have been leaked out. I wouldn't want to have had a recording of that conversation made public and for people to find out about it. Did I really mean what I said? No, I was hurt, and we've patched things up since then. We're not back together or anything, but we've patched things up, and we're cool now. But I said some things that were pretty bad. I would not. I wouldn't want that conversation to get out, and I didn't. Again, I didn't mean it. I didn't. I didn't really feel that way. I was just angry, and I was expressing myself. So, what Hulk Hogan did in that conversation struck me very much along those same lines. He was just angry, frustrated, and in a dark place in his life, and he probably didn't really mean it to the extent that it sounded. So, but again, he didn't really hurt me. That's up for people that were offended by it and were deeply hurt by it, and the ones that deserve to be hurt by it, which were African Americans, obviously. To me, it's up to them to forgive him. And his daughter. I mean, he said some nasty things about his daughter in that tape, and she forgave him. So, by all outward appearances, it seemed that way. So, to me, it's do I forgive him? I mean, to me, like I said, he didn't really hurt me. So I don't think it's my place to forgive him. And I let the ones that got hurt by it, ask them if they forgive him. And that's really up to them. Non-wrestling question. What is your top pick? Who is your top pick for president of the United States in 2016? All right, politically speaking, I am very much a fuck everybody type of guy. I hate the Republicans. I hate the Democrats. I hate the news media that covers them because they're so biased towards one side or the other. It's funny that Fox News gets a reputation for being a conservative bias to the degree of being a parody of itself. And it's true. However, MSNBC is the same thing, only on the liberal side, to the point where they are so biased towards the liberal side, I just cannot fucking take them seriously as a news source. I fucking can't. And I hate the fucking news media, the way they report shit, and I hate both parties. And to me, most of the candidates working for both parties are acting in their own self-interests or in the interests of their own party and not for the good of the American people or what's best for this country. And yeah, it's very jaded of me to think that, but that's how I feel. And I felt that way about every presidential candidate most of my lifetime, honestly. I know that sounds sad, but it's true. That's how I feel. Who am I voting for? I might write in, Ron Swanson or something. Scrooge McDuck, maybe. There was actually an episode of DuckTales that covered economics that to me is like, that episode of DuckTales should be shown in every school in America just so people know how money works. But yeah, so it's like, yeah, I wish Ron Swanson and Scrooge McDuck could run for president. It'd be great. He's like, Scrooge McDuck would be Donald Trump with savvy and without the, idiocy. So it'd be great. But no, as far as like the top candidates for the Democrats and the Republicans, I couldn't possibly care any less because I don't really like any of them. I remember a few months ago, and this is before the Donald Trump stuff happened, so it was really like early on in kind of the process. There was talk that it was going to be Jeb Bush and Hillary Clinton, and I was ready to just put a gun in my mouth and pull the trigger. I'm like, really? We really going to go back to the Clinton and Bush wells again? Seriously? Is that something we're really going to do, America? And like, I don't know. It was like, I don't know. I'm just a jaded asshole. So to answer your question, I don't really care. I will vote. I always write in a candidate because I will vote to participate in the process, but also to maintain my ability to bitch. Because basically my write-in vote is a vote for none of the above. And like, I hate all the candidates, and I'm not voting for a lesser of two evils. I refuse to do that. The only, although, greatest T-shirt I've ever saw. During the 2008 election, they had Optimus Prime 2008 and Megatron 2008 T-shirts, and the Megatron shirt said, Megatron 2008, why vote for a lesser evil? And I was like, you know what? Kind of makes sense. I wish I'd bought that shirt, but in any case, that's my political rant for the day. All right, Kleran Nelson, who only had a wrestling question. If I missed your non-wrestling question, I'm sorry, but I only saw the wrestling question. What is your favorite suplex variation? I typically like suplexes that result in a pin, although I would like it if they got wins more often so that the pin actually means something. Like the perfect plex, I really like. Because it looks like a perfect pinning combination, pun intended. German suplexes with a bridge or Northern Light suplexes I really like. They're just really beautiful. Not a big fan of the Brainbuster. It just looks like a vertical suplex most of the time. And very few guys can get the snap on it to make it look the way it should. And I've seen the Brainbuster more and more and more nowadays, and not as many people quite do it right. But the Jackhammer is a great suplex variation. Goldberg's finisher, that wouldn't look great. What are some other ones? Trying to think of some good ones. A lot of the ones you don't see in the WWE, like Dragon and Tiger suplexes, those are also very cool. T-bone suplexes are very cool too. So yeah, suplexes are just cool. That's just how it is. Suplexes are just fun, just very, very cool stuff. All right, Bradley Martin, how would you book Luke Harper? I would, quite honestly, book him as a monster, give him squash matches, and have it so that he's viewed as unbeatable, and let that powerbomb of his be a finisher. That's what I would do. And if he were tagging with Strowman or Eric Rowan, I would book them as a brute tag team that kills people. That's what I would do, and then I would build them up to situations where when they have real matches, where it's competitive, it actually means something. I would basically make him look like a brute and a monster, and they don't always do that. He's just kind of a flunky that loses most of the time. So, yeah. Non-wrestling question: who is your favorite Power Ranger villain? Lord Zed. I remember when I was a kid, and I was into Power Rangers. I was about 7 or 8. And the show had become such a big hit that they eventually did the primetime special, which I assumed was just going to be like another episode of Power Rangers. I assumed it was going to be the same formula, same everything. And then right off the bat, in the pre-show preview, they said that Lord Zed's coming back. He's going to take over Rita Repulsa's empire and ultimately try to destroy the Power Rangers. And I got a glimpse of what Lord Zed looked like. I was like, whoa. That looks cool. And then when he showed up, it was like, wow, that's even more cool. And it was funny because the change right off the bat completely changed the status quo of the show and everything. And I thought Lord Zed was just awesome right off the bat. The design is fantastic. Like, it's something that belongs in a real horror movie. It's like, you wouldn't expect something that looks like Lord Zed to be in a show like Power Rangers. And he was just so instantly threatening and menacing that, obviously that got watered down over time because, the parents got mad. The same thing happened to a lot of villains during the 80s, like Skeletor. And Skeletor, I mean, yeah, we remember him as a goofball, but go back and watch, like, the early episodes of He-Man, and he's actually... They tried to make him more menacing, and I think they just kind of watered it down and made him very jokey and quippy and kind of silly, which I like silly Skeletor, but... that happened to a lot of villains in the 80s. It even eventually happened to Mum-Ra. And Mum-Ra was so scary initially, and then they watered him down. But Lord Zed was kind of cut from that same cloth, where initially he was very menacing and very cool to look at and everything. And it was funny, even as a kid when I first got into Power Rangers, I was like, yeah, this show's good, but Rita's kind of a dork. So to me, Lord Zed was just this instant upgrade. And... I just thought he was great, and being a monster movie fan, I just loved something that looked like that and acted like that, and just a terrific design, just a really, really great design, and great voice too. The music that accompanied him was great, and there's also this appeal to it, as I found out years later, that Lord Zed was, as a kid, I didn't really, care about that type of stuff. It didn't really connect with me. But years later, I realized that Lord Zed was completely an American creation. He was created specifically for the American show. Rita and Goldar and all the other villains, they all came from the Super Sentai show, Zoo Ranger, I believe it's called, that Power Rangers was used to create. That was used to create Power Rangers, basically. Lord Zed was a completely American creation, and I believe there were several other villains that followed, but Lord Zed was the first one that was completely American creation and created specifically for the show. And so there's also that kind of aspect to it. It's like, yeah, he's our bad guy. And so that was kind of cool. It was cool that we had something that the Japanese show didn't. Because normally, especially growing up as a Godzilla fan, you're used to hearing, the Japanese version of the film or the show has more material and is better cut and just better overall. So for our American version to have something that the Japanese show didn't, that was so cool and so great, that's really appealing too. So it gives the show more of an identity. It gives the American version of the show its own identity and allows it to stand on its own. So yeah, I love Lord Zed. That was just he was my favorite Power Ranger villain by far my favorite. Another thing, I almost forgot to make this point. The status quo being changed and losing Rita as the villain, I completely accepted it right off the bat. Eventually she came back and they got married, but it was so funny because normally I hated change back in the shows when I was a kid. Like, whenever they changed something, I would hate it. Like, they killed off Optimus Prime and replaced him with Rodimus Prime, and I hated Rodimus in the show. G.I. Joe, when they replaced Cobra Commander and Serpentor took over Cobra, I was like, no, that's bullshit. And I could do a whole nother video talking about why I thought Serpentor sucked, but whenever there was a big change like that, I hated it. But that Power Rangers, when they went with Lord Zed over Rita, I was like, no, this is awesome. I like this. So, yeah, Lord Zed was my favorite Power Ranger villain. Nicholas Anderson, wrestling question, what are your opinions on Carlito? Gigantic missed opportunity for the WWE. This is a guy that came in, was so charismatic, so just owned the role that he was given. was so great, and he could work, he could do it all. As far as like projecting his character, he did that flawlessly. He was great. He had a catchphrase that everybody liked. He had a great personality, unique look to him. I mean, that hair. I mean, come on. It was a unique look for him. And, he just seemed to have everything going for him. But then, he comes to Raw, wins the IC title, looks like he's doing really well, and then he's got to lose to Ric Flair 850 times. And he never recovered from that. So it's a shame. It was a shame. They had one of their hot young stars right there, primed and ready to go, and they just, I don't know. Like I don't know. They just dropped the ball with him. I don't know what the reason is, but it's a shame. Carlito should have been much more than he ultimately became. Non-wrestling question. What are your favorite foods? Anything smothered in marinara sauce. I love pasta. I love pizza. I love very American Italian of me, too. I do have Italian heritage, but I grew up on Americanized Italian food, and I just love the taste of it, and different spices that are used to zest up the sauce, and different meats that go with it. It's like, God, like marinara sauce. There's never a bad time for marinara sauce. I just love it. And so anything that's like any pasta or dish like lasagna. Oh my God, I haven't had lasagna in forever. But anything that uses marinara sauce is something that I really like. So, yeah. All right, Joshua Abella, wrestling question. Why do indie stars go to WWE when they know they'll get abused? They go to WWE because it's the biggest game in town, and it's the biggest paychecks, and the biggest chance for exposure. And also, they know they're going to get abused. They don't really know that anymore because they've done a better job of handling the indie guys in recent years. A few years ago, it was ridiculous. Any indie guy they would just instantly shit on him. But it's like, how dare you be an indie guy come into our domain or whatever. It's like, well, you fucking signed him. But now, with NXT and everything, and change in mindset in scouting talent, it seems like there's better roles for indie guys that make it to the WWE. So, it gives them more incentive to go there, definitely, aside from bigger paychecks, bigger exposure, and all that stuff. So, they get put into the developmental system of NXT, and it gives them a chance to learn and grow. There's a lot of reasons for why they would go there, quite honestly. Non-wrestling question, do you prefer practical effects or CGI? Always practical effects. I always prefer practical effects because it's just, when you do CGI, and not that CGI is always bad. There are times when it's done terrifically well. Look at Jurassic Park. But Jurassic Park also used puppets and animatronics and all sorts of other things to create the illusion. When you look at CGI, it just has a synthetic look to it. And I think it's because you're constantly having to account for things like mass and lighting and other aspects that you don't have to worry as much about when you're working with, puppets and animatronics and rubber suits and all of that jazz. It just looks better when there's something really there in front of the camera. I mean, look at The Dark Crystal. Look at that movie and look at all the puppets that Jim Henson and his team created and brought to life to make that movie happen. And I remember watching that movie as a 5-year-old, and I thought the Skeksis were real. I legitimately thought the Skeksis were real at a young age when I first saw that movie, because it's just, they were just so lifelike, and they look like they're really there in front of the camera because they actually are there in front of the camera. It's just very well done. The Ninja Turtles from the 90s film, they look like the Ninja Turtles. They look like they're, oh my God, there they are, they're right there. And CGI I'm sorry, it just doesn't have that same aspect to it. It just looks like it has a cartoon element to it. And again, part of that's because the image isn't really there. Part of that's because of lighting. Part of that is because of, how they interact, how they have the computer-generated image interact with the environment around it. But like I said, it's not always terrible. I mean, believe it or not, Gollum was great. Gollum was probably the best example of this as far as like a CGI character brought to life. But believe it or not, Jar Jar Binks, really well done special effect. I mean, you really do believe Jar Jar is actually there, and really well done. It's just a shame that the character sucks. But the illusion is very believable. So it is possible to make CGI look good. I thought the last Planet of the Apes movie The apes look terrific, I thought. So, there's another... Godzilla. I thought Godzilla looked great in the last movie. Of course, they didn't show him off that much, so that's one of the reasons he looks so good. But yeah, it's harder to do with CGI, but it's harder to make the image look good, but it's easier to do because it's cheaper and less time-consuming and less stress on the film crew and everything like that. It's just easier to do everything CGI. And you can get whatever image you want. You can completely manipulate the image to get whatever you want. It just doesn't always look as good. And there's something about that handcrafted, even if it doesn't look that great, just the idea that they made something and put it right there in front of the camera, that's just always more magical to me and always more appealing to me than just going on a computer, beep, boop, and generating an image. I know I'm oversimplifying things. Computer animation is extremely difficult, but it's an easier solution for directors and film producers and studios and all that other things. So, it's here to stay, unfortunately, but I would like to see more practical effects. What is it? Sorry, I'm having trouble reading that name. My handwriting is awful. Mark Davis, I think, or Matt Davies. I'm sorry, my bad. Matt Davies, who is the worst booked WWE champ out of these three? The Miz, Seth Rollins, or Randy Orton? All three of them got booked pretty poorly, but I'd probably go with The Miz because they had him cash in the Money in the Bank. He wins the title, and then they have him feud with Lawler for most of the duration of his time as champion, which makes him look like shit because he can barely beat the announcer guy, the 60-year-old announcer guy, and he can barely beat him. He has to cheat to beat Jerry Lawler, and it's like, wow, that's pathetic. But it just made Miz look laughable. Really made him look like a joke, and then Rock helps him save the title at WrestleMania, which was fine. It's like, all right, he's still the champion. Let's see what we can do with him going past Mania. And then he just loses the belt to Cena the next month, so it ultimately amounted to nothing. So the Miz's title reign was just a complete exercise in pointlessness, especially when you take into account that Rock and Cena took center stage over him, even in the WrestleMania main event itself that he was supposed to be the champion for, and he was just kind of an afterthought. So as far as like the worst booked champion, I mean, Seth is booked like shit, but at least he's the centerpiece of the show. Orton has been booked like shit as champion, but at least most of the time he's the centerpiece of the show when he is the champion. Miz was just treated like garbage. I don't even know why they put the belt on him if they were just going to do what they did with him, but whatever. Seven Deadly Sins 2011. Wrestling question. Rank the NXT specials from best to worst. That is really hard to do because none of them are bad. None of them are even below average. None of them are even average. I said that in my previous video. They're just great. Ranking them from best to worst, or worst to best, or whatever. If I was going to say a best, Our Evolution and Brooklyn are probably the two best. I would say Brooklyn for its different atmosphere and for the Sasha Bailey match and the ladder match and just being good all around. Our Evolution for being the payoff to Sami Zayn and that really excellent main event, the great women's match, and just having no wasted motion with just a well put together show from top to bottom. So I think Our Evolution, and even Our Evolution, its ending where Kevin Owens beat the crap out of Sami Zayn, that was a great cliffhanger to go out on. So Our Evolution and Brooklyn I think are the two best. Next step down would probably be maybe Unstoppable. That one was very good, even though the booking of the main event was a little wonky. You did have that great Becky-Sasha match. So, yeah, and again, just a really solid show all around. Respect, which we just had. You had the tag team tournament, and you had that excellent Iron Man match between Bayley and Sasha. That one was great. So those two are probably the next step down. I ranked the first TakeOver pretty high because it was the first NXT special I ever saw, so it was the show that made me an NXT fan, so that would probably be the next step down. Then probably Rival, which, maybe I'm ranking Rival. See, they're all so close together in quality. I think I'm putting Rival a little too low. But the main event to Rival, the first Sami Zayn, Kevin Owens match, that one was terrific. The four-way women's match was good. Yeah, I remember. Yeah, maybe I should rank that one a little higher. I don't know. The two weakest are probably Arrival, the first one that they did, which before they even started before they started calling them takeovers. Arrival and Fatal 4-Way are probably the two weakest. The main event of Fatal 4-Way is terrific. The women's match is great too, Bayley versus Charlotte, but the rest of the card is kind of like, it needed a little bit more of an oomph to it, and probably having a Fatal 4-Way main event took away a lot of the star power for what to do for the rest of the card. But that one's probably the weakest. And Arrival, I say that one's one of the weaker ones because I didn't see it live. I only saw it months after the fact when I already knew all the results. And some people will say, oh, well, to me it matters because I already know who's going to win and I already know what's going to happen. So it doesn't have that same excitement to it. It's like trying to watch the Super Bowl after you already know who wins. It's like you can't really get super pumped about it. But, it did have Sami Zayn and Cesaro. It had a really good ladder match between Bo and Adrian Neville and a couple other good things here and there. And Paige and Emma had a good match. So there's some good things on there. It's just I wish I had seen it live, which was my fault. I hadn't ordered the network at that point. But so yeah, it's that's basically the rank. I might switch some of that around a little bit, but like I said, all of the NXT specials have been so good that it's hard to really pick favorites one over the other. They're all just so great, and very few of them have many faults, and the ones that do have faults have enough good stuff to balance it out. So that's really consistency is the word for these NXT specials because they're great. Non-wrestling question: are you more excited for Infinity Wars or the Justice League movies? I guess Infinity Wars because Marvel has built up more of its trust. They typically put on good to great movies. DC is still a bit of an uncertain phase. They're building this whole cinematic universe of their own, and we don't really know how it's going to turn out yet. Man of Steel was a middle-of-the-road movie. We've got Batman, Superman coming up. We've got Suicide Squad coming up, and we'll wait and see how those turn out. So I'm not really excited for JLA yet until I'm confident that DC is, they've got all their ducks in a row and they know what they're doing and they actually do a good job with this. I don't really know yet. So I'm more excited for Infinity War because that feels like the thing that they've been building up from the beginning. Like ever since they did the first Avengers movie, they've been teasing Thanos and the Infinity Gauntlet and all that other stuff. So to finally see that get realized, that's going to be a big event. And I think that one's going to be, it should be great. I mean, if they drop the ball with that one, then fuck. But I think Marvel's built up enough trust to where they're going to do at least a good job with it. So I'd say I'm more excited for Infinity War. Wrestling Decrypted. Wrestling question. If you could get dropped into any locker room of any time period, where would you go? Nowhere, because I don't want to be in a locker room full of like naked drunken men with right after they have matches. It's just not an environment I want to be in, to be perfectly honest. But I don't know, depending on like the party atmosphere or what it is backstage, that might be just something completely out of my element. I mean, ECW I'm sure was insane, and to be in that locker room, you would have had to have been a personality that would mesh with those type of people to be able to survive in that locker room. So being inside a wrestling locker room, not for me. Just not something I need to see. Unless I take that back. The women's locker room, that would be the better one. Yeah, like the Divas locker room from like the early 2000s when they just sexed the holy hell out of them. It's like that would have been a nice place to be. But yeah, other than that, non-wrestling question: your top 3 favorite movies? I guess I already touched up on this, but my top 3 favorite movies, quite honestly, are Rocky, the Star Wars trilogy, which I count as one movie, and Die Hard. Those are my top 3 favorite movies. Just has everything I like, from action to drama to emotion and comedy and everything in between. They're just great. I love those movies. NuttyRockChick, wrestling question: what 3 pay-per-views would you have liked to have attended live in person? Mostly because of the crowd atmosphere and the way the moments were executed and how the crowd reacted to those moments. I would have loved to have been there at Money in the Bank 2011 when Punk beat Cena for the title. I would have loved to have been at WrestleMania 18 and been in the crowd for Hogan Rock, and then I would have immediately left after that match because there was nothing left to see. And I would have loved to have been there for Bash at the Beach 1996 when Hulk Hogan turned heel and formed the NWO. Just to be around in the crowds when those moments were happening, I think would have been great. So those are 3 pay-per-views I would have loved to have attended just to see that shit go down. I think would have been a lot of fun and would have been great memories had I attended those shows. Non-wrestling question: who were your childhood heroes? In the fictional realm, I was Optimus Prime was actually my big hero when I was a kid. I was a big Hulk Hogan fan too, but Optimus Prime was kind of like my ultimate good guy hero. Batman was a big childhood hero of mine. Not so much Superman. I didn't actually get into Superman until I was much older. Who were some other ones? Rocky Balboa was one. I loved Rocky. Trying to think of some other ones. Cal Ripken Jr., to bring it into the realm of reality, Cal Ripken Jr. was a huge, actually I have his flag right behind me. I got that flag right after he broke the record of most consecutive games, and I've kept it ever since. So Cal Ripken, I was a big fan of his, and he's really the main reason I'm a Baltimore Orioles fan more than anything else, and I just loved my Cal, and it's the reason I'm an Orioles fan to this day. So as far as sports heroes go, yeah, Cal Ripken was actually my big number one when I was a kid. TromaDogg, wrestling question. What is your earliest memory of watching wrestling? I saw highlights of Randy Savage versus Hulk Hogan from WrestleMania 5, and I fell in love with it. Just these colorful characters just beating the crap out of each other, and blood, because Hogan bled in that match, and there was blood, and there was some drama going on with a woman, and just all this crazy shit going on, and I was like, I think I might like this. And I've been watching ever since. Non-wrestling question. What type of video games do you like? And are you a gamer? Not really much of a gamer. And I think I've said this before. I'm not really into modern games. Like, you can't really see it from here, but my entertainment station, I've got an N64 hooked up, a Super Nintendo hooked up, and a GameCube hooked up because I mostly like playing Mario and Zelda. And I have those and actually the newest system I've bought is the 3DS, and I bought that mainly so I could play Legend of Zelda and download some old games and play those as well. And I'm actually, the next system I'm thinking about getting is a Wii U, just so I can buy Mario Maker and mess around with that, because I am an old school Nintendo fan, and that's the stuff I love. It's just Mario and Zelda. Those are some of my favorite games ever. Super Mario Brothers 3 is probably my number one. Super Mario World I love. Super Mario 64 is great. In Legend of Zelda, the original is a classic, even though it's probably the biggest fuck you game ever, because it's literally like, there's no hand-holding in that game. They literally just go, all right, here's your sword. Play the game. And they don't tell you shit. And you just got to figure shit out for yourself, which is like no game I know about does it to that degree anymore. There's not a whole lot of cryptic shit going on in video games today, at least not that I'm aware of. Not to the degree that the original Zelda was. But Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, I think, is a classic. That's arguably the best Zelda game. The only other one that comes close is Ocarina of Time. I also really like Twilight Princess. Wind Waker was great. Sailing around the map was a little tedious, but other than that, I thought Wind Waker was very good. I liked Skyward Sword, but there were a couple things they could have done better, I think. But overall, yeah, I love Mario and Zelda. And actually, Link Between Worlds was very good, too. That one's also... And I also, through my 3DS, I finally downloaded Link's Awakening, and I played that. I finally played Link's Awakening, and yes, it's great. It's a great Zelda game. So, yeah, I'm more of an old-school gamer. Some of my other favorite games outside of Mario and Zelda, Mega Man 2 is... most of the Mega Man games, actually, are very good. Super Castlevania 4, I think that's my favorite Castlevania game. Castlevania Rondo of Blood, I've played that. That's also very good. What are some other... I love the Metroid games. Super Metroid's my favorite one. Star Fox 64 is great. Way better than the Super Nintendo version. And the GameCube game was nowhere near as good as the N64 one. So yeah, I love Nintendo. To throw Sega some love, some of the Sonic the Hedgehog games I think are very good. Sonic 2 is probably my favorite one that I played. But Yeah, I am more of an old school gamer. As far as wrestling games go, I don't think it ever got as good as the Aki THQ wrestling games on N64. WCW NWO vs. the World, WCW NWO Revenge, WWF WrestleMania 2000, and WWF No Mercy. Those are the best wrestling games ever made, in my eyes. With the GameCube Day of Reckoning games being the number 2 that I've played. Anyway, I know there are a bunch of other games that other people have played, but for the ones that I've played, those are my favorite ones. And the Day of Reckoning games are the closest we've had to the AKI THQ games. But yeah, those are some of the games that I really enjoy. But like I said, I'm not much of a gamer these days. Did I skip a question? No, I didn't. Okay. Sorry. It's part of the problem of writing all this down. I got to keep track and shit. All right. General Wetwood. Wrestling question. Thoughts on the Heroes of Wrestling pay-per-view? It is the worst wrestling pay-per-view of all time. Go watch it. It's a train wreck. I'm not even going to go into detail. It is literally the worst wrestling pay-per-view I've ever watched in my entire life. You think TNA at its worst is bad? You think WCW at its worst is bad? You think WWE at its worst is bad? You don't know bad until you've seen the Heroes of Wrestling pay-per-view. It's a gem, let me tell you. Non-wrestling question. Are you looking forward to Edge being on The Flash? Absolutely. I enjoy The Flash TV show, and Edge is going to play a villain, I believe. I don't know what role exactly. I just know he's going to be on it, and I'm looking forward to seeing him. I haven't seen the first episode of Season 2 yet. I have it DVR'd. He might have been in it. I don't know. Who knows? I haven't kept up. But, yeah, once I get caught up on that, I look forward to seeing Edge. I'm sure it's going to be really cool to see him, because The Flash it's a really fun show, and they've done pretty good job of casting most of the bad guys. I think especially, when they brought out Mark Hamill to replay the Trickster, I was like, okay, I love YuKno. And the way they executed Grodd was really good too. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Edge. I think it's going to be great. RS Horrorman, wrestling question. What WrestleMania opener stole the show? The closest, I would say absolutely did stole the show, was Triple H versus Daniel Bryan at WrestleMania 30. There's some other really good openers, but like Bret and Owen at 10, but that was on the WrestleMania that also included the ladder match, so it didn't really steal the show. WrestleMania 30, I thought Triple H and Bryan had by far the best match, and it set up the main event, so it was a very nice bookend in that regard. And yeah, you had the Undertaker streak ending, which was the big moment that everybody was talking about when it was done, but as far as like matches go, I thought Triple H and Daniel Bryan stole the show and just had arguably the best opener in WrestleMania history. It was great. And non-wrestling question, what is the most disturbing movie you have ever seen? Maybe it's because I was raised Roman Catholic, but there were so many moments in The Exorcist that still bother me to this day, like their crucifix scene. That one just, I don't know, that scene just gives me the willies. It's bizarre. Some other ones, there's a lot of other like really fucked up movies that I've seen. Like I saw Spliced or whatever that movie was a couple years ago, and the whole subject matter of that film is really fucked up. Oh hey, let's raise this penis rat like it's our daughter, and then Adrian Brody's like, hey, let me fuck that penis rat that I raised as a daughter, and then the penis rat changes genders and it rapes the woman and impregnates her. It's like, Jesus Christ, this is some fucked up shit. This is some really fucked up shit. And, yeah, so there's that one. That one's really disturbing. There's a lot of really, like Texas Chainsaw Massacre is disturbing. Probably the number one most disturbing movie I've ever seen, and it's not because of the subject matter, but because of what went on in actually making the movie. Cannibal Holocaust. I saw, they actually killed live animals on screen, on camera. Like, chopped a monkey's face off and cut a turtle open and cooked it and did all sorts of other weird things with animals. And I don't know, that just rubbed me the wrong way. And I'm no animal rights guy by any stretch of the imagination, but I don't know, that just rubbed me the wrong way that they would do that. It's... they would actually kill animals on screen for the sake of entertainment. It's like, I don't know. Well, at least I guess they ate the turtle, but, whatever. Some people would probably say the human centipede is disgusting to me. That's just really, really gross. Although I'll be honest, I've never seen the human centipede film, so I can't really say. They might be really disturbing. I don't know. But I looked at the trailers. I'm like, no, this is just, shock value trying too hard to be shocking. And That doesn't really work for me, but, you know. Also, as far as disturbing movies goes, we want to step out of the realm of horror, like straight-up horror movies. Schindler's List is obviously very disturbing. The Passion of the Christ is also very disturbing. So, yeah, there's plenty of sick ones out there. And I have a friend who's, like, he's into, like, really dark shit when it comes to movies. And he rattled off a bunch of movies that he said, it's like, dude, you don't know what disturbing is until you've seen some of these. And I forget the titles of them, but he's into some really weird shit. So moving right along. Michael McCormick, wrestling question. What would be the best way to debut Finn Balor on the main roster? I don't know about a storyline or anything, but I would probably debut him, have him, start off a big feud right away with somebody known on the roster, build him up with squash matches so that his moves and his character can get over, give him some video packages because his character is just great for that. And just give him good storylines, good build-ups, and let him win most of the time. That would be a pretty good way. Just book him right. That'd be a good way to debut him. Not make him look like an idiot, or not have him stuck in this place where Neville's in now, where Neville just wrestles the same exact people every single week. So don't do that with him either. Non-wrestling question. What superhero or comic would you like to see turned into a TV show? I think Watchmen would work best as a TV miniseries. A lot of people said that when they did the movie that Zack Snyder made, and the movie's not bad. It's just this needed to be a miniseries. Like, the idea of doing a movie is just too Herculean of a task to ask of anybody. And the fact that the movie's as good as it is kind of amazing. It should have been a disaster, and it wasn't. So there's no malice. I don't have any malice towards the movie, but I think it would work better as a miniseries, and that's something that I would prefer seeing. Other than that, I think any big superhero would probably work as a TV show, like Wonder Woman, The Flash is doing well, Arrow's doing well. Gotham got a second season. I don't think it's the best show in the world, but, there's some good stuff in it. So, yeah, I think any big character, Superman's worked as a TV show several times. I never watched Smallville, but it was a hit. So, and you had the Lois and Clark show back in the day. So, any big known character I think would work as a TV show if done right. So, yeah. Where was I? Okay, JohnEnigma. What movie or book would you like to base a wrestling storyline off of? Well, that is something that's been done before, believe it or not. The whole Undertaker-Kane storyline and Kane's whole backstory, that was totally inspired by Halloween. It wasn't a direct rip-off of Halloween, but you can definitely see the inspirations there. I had the idea for TNA when they were doing the Aces and Eights thing. My idea was for it to be revealed that Abyss was the leader of the Aces and Eights, and Joseph Park didn't know. And it would be revealed that Joseph Park and Abyss are the same person through that method, where Joseph Park is the complete, he's the nice personality that has no idea what's going on, and Abyss is his radical, what's the chaotic, anarchy-driven alter ego that's running this group that's tearing the company apart. And does that sound familiar to anybody? It should. Anybody who's watched the movie Fight Club, that's exactly what I based it off of. That's exactly what I took that idea from. They ultimately did not go that route, but I think that would have been a nice way to draw inspiration from a movie to create a wrestling storyline. Sometimes when you use a movie to create a wrestling character or storyline, it looks like a ripoff, like when Paul Burchill played a pirate, and they were clearly just ripping off Jack Sparrow in the Pirates of the Caribbean movie because it was a thing that was popular at the time, and that just seemed extremely forced. But if you actually take the qualities that kind of you can adapt to a wrestling storyline and then kind of give it its own identity, then it should work fine. And obviously, like I said, the Halloween thing with Undertaker and Kane worked. I think the Fight Club idea I had for Aces and Eights would have worked better than what they ultimately did. Again, we'll never know. But as for other movies that would be good for that, hard to say. Again, it's really hard. I'm not sure exactly. Like again, I like my Fight Club idea, but other than that, I'm not sure if I'm clever enough to come up with like how to work a movie into a wrestling storyline, because that is tricky. But as we've seen in the past, in certain other cases, it is possible as well. So, yeah. All right, non-wrestling question. What movies are you interested in seeing this fall? Well, the big ones. I'll just go for the remainder of the year because it's going to go from fall to winter. But for the remainder of the year, obviously I want to see Star Wars. I obviously want to see Spectre, the new James Bond movie. The Martian just came out. I like the book and I really want to see the movie. So I'll probably be seeing that sometime in the next week. Pixar's got The Good Dinosaur coming out, and because I love Pixar, I'm obviously going to be checking that one out. And, they won me back after Inside Out turned out as well as it did. So I'll check out The Good Dinosaur as well. Being a Rocky fan, I kind of want to see Creed. I'm interested in seeing it. I was worried when I heard they were doing another Rocky movie, because to me it's like, no, Rocky Balboa was the perfect ending, don't ruin it. But to see that the focus of this movie is going to be on Apollo Creed's son and Rocky is the trainer, it's like, okay, that actually works a little bit better. And if the movie sucks, it doesn't ruin Rocky Balboa at all, because it's not really Rocky's story. It's it's Creed Jr.'s story, basically. So, but I am interested in seeing it. It'll be nice to revisit the Rocky universe again and see if they're able to deliver anything good. And there's also a Victor Frankenstein movie coming out, and being an old school fan of the old Universal horror movies, I'm always on the lookout for good Frankenstein or Dracula movies. Most of the time I am disappointed. Hopefully this one is good. We shall see. But yeah, so we've got that to look forward to. And next question's from Matthew Gibb. Wrestling question. Are indie stars and one-off legends being included into NXT, does that hinder the progression of NXT guys who started there initially? I don't think so. I think, it gives them more experience. It gives them more guys to work with, and the independent guys that are coming to NXT can work with those guys and give them more experience and get them better, because the indie guys are coming in with a wealth of experience. So I think it gives the NXT original, shall we say, it gives them better talents to develop with. James Storm from TNA, he just joined NXT, so it'll be interesting to see what he does. But he's a guy that's been around for a long time. He wrestled before he was in TNA, and he was with TNA for 13 years. So what can he do with younger guys to help get them better and help them improve? That'll be interesting to see. So no, I don't think that necessarily hinders the progression. I think it just gives them better talents to work with and gives them more opportunity to progress themselves and get better and learn and absorb more knowledge. So, and no, I don't think it necessarily hinders their progression. Non-wrestling question. Are the Cowboys still favorites to win the NFC East despite all the injuries? Honestly, the NFC East is so bad that I don't, the Cowboys could, I wouldn't say they're favorites, but they could still just as easily win the division even without Romo and Des Bryant, because the Giants are their own worst enemies. They should be 4-0 right now. They're not, because of boneheaded mistakes that cost them the first two games, and they still make those mistakes even in the games they win. The Eagles look terrible on offense. The Redskins, you never know what team's going to show up. So there's so many inconsistencies and deficiencies with all the teams that it's like, yeah, the Cowboys could just as easily win the division even without Romo. Sure, of course. Not a problem. Kendrick Lewis. What's your favorite WCW pay-per-view? There are quite a few that I like. And it's funny because WCW was not known for putting on quality pay-per-views because they normally put so much focus on their TV product that their pay-per-views typically suffered for it. But some of the ones I really liked, I made a list. Great American Bash 89, that was the one with Funk and Flair in the main event. The first Starrcade, even though that's NWA, technically not WCW, I feel like I should mention that one. The dog collar match, Flair beats Harley Race for the title, a bunch of cool stuff on that one. Chi-Town Rumble, the famous Flair and Steamboat match, that big show deserves a lot of praise. Great American Bash 92 was the first WCW pay-per-view I ever saw, and it had that big tag team title tournament. But also, it was the first Sting Vader match I ever saw, and it is incredible match. Love that match. It's still one of my favorites to this day. Great American. What was the one I was looking at here? I'm sorry. Beach Blast 92, which was the one where you had the Steiner brothers in the main event in that 30-minute draw against who did they fight in that? I'm trying to remember. I'll have to go look that up later. But the tag team match main event that went to a 30-minute draw that was pretty good. You had Ricky Steamboat versus Rick Rude in a 30-minute Iron Man match that was really good. You had Sting versus Cactus Jack in that crazy no DQ match that was really, really good, which Foley said was the best match of his career up to that point. So a lot of good stuff on Beach Blast 92. Super Brawl 8 was one I really liked. As far as like the Monday Night War period shows, I just thought that one had a lot of really good undercard matches. It was Goldberg's... Goldberg had a squash match on there that was really good. DDP and I believe it was Raven. Was that the one where they had the U.S. title match? They also had Sting and Hogan in the main event having the match that they should have had at Starrcade 97. It was too little too late by that point. But, and actually Spring Stampede later that year was also another really good one. I also liked... I think Rated Barrack and Bash 96 had a lot of really good undercard matches that were really good. Great showcases, the Cruiserweight division had come into play by that point. Bash to the Beach 94, that was the first Hogan-Flair match, so it had a big fight feel to it. You also had Steve Austin versus Ricky Steamboat for the U.S. title, which was another great match. And for their endings, I really liked Bash to the Beach 96. Because that was the one where the NWO formed, and Uncensored 97, because that was when Sting came back and attacked the NWO, and that ending was absolutely fucking amazing, and I loved it. So, those are the WCW pay-per-views that really click in my brain, and I really enjoyed. Non-wrestling question, what do you think of the Seattle Seahawks? I don't hate them, but I don't love them either. They're just, and I mean, there's a lot of talent on that team, even though they're struggling this year. They made it to 2 Super Bowls in a row for a reason. There's a lot of talent there, but I don't really, as far as whether or not I like them, I don't really have an opinion on them one way or the other. It doesn't piss me off when they win. I don't get upset when they lose. I just shrug my shoulders at them. So it's like, okay, they're unintrusive to me, based on my concerns. Most of the teams I care about are like the NFC East teams, and the AFC East teams typically. And the NFC North, I always really like the Packers and the Bears, and so I always like following them. Those are typically the teams I follow the most. And Seattle Seahawks is just not in that, just not in that group. So I just typically I'll watch a Seattle Seahawks game, and I respect that they have talent and everything, but I don't hate or love them as a team. They're just there to me. Okay, so that's done. We're actually on the last page, almost there, yay. All right. Flaw693, wrestling question. Do you think Owen Hart would have become WWE Champion if he had lived? No, I think Owen was at the end of his career. Most interviews and stuff that I've heard said that he was getting ready to wind down and ultimately end his wrestling career. I think if they were going to put the world title on him, it would have been in that 94 to 96 range when he was at his best as a character and as a talent. And by 1999, it was clear that he was on the back end. Not that it reflected in his work, it was just the intrigue surrounding him just wasn't there as strongly as it had been. And also, this was also the same time period where, you had Steve Austin on top, you had Rock on top, you had Undertaker there, Foley was there, Triple H was on his way up, and all these other things. So, there just wasn't much room for him at the top. And I don't think Owen would have ever become champion. So, that's just me. Non-wrestling question. What horror movie had the best gore effects? Ooh, good question. Because the funny thing about gore, it's either got to look super realistic or it has to look kind of like a little cartoony, like at least a little cartoony, just so it's like it has this over-the-top quality to it. I'm not even sure if I'm explaining it right. So if it has like a fantasy element to the gore, it kind of makes the movie entertaining in a way. Like Evil Dead is a perfect example of that, where the gore doesn't always look super realistic, but it's so over the top and so crazy that it looks great and it fits the movie perfectly. Evil Dead 2, same thing. But for realism, you look at like the original Friday the 13th, which is not one of my favorite horror movies, but the gore effects in that one look outstanding. Like everybody talks about the arrow going through Kevin Bacon's chest, and like, yeah, that looks real. Like it looks just totally sick. You look at John Carpenter's The Thing. That's one that I thought the gore effects were great in. The Cronenberg version of The Fly had great gore effects. Most zombie movies typically have really good gore effects, namely, like Night of the Living Dead and Day of the Dead and Dawn of the Dead and all sorts of other ones. Those are typically really good. I'm trying to think of some other ones. Those are my favorite ones. The Alien movies typically have really good gore effects, especially the first two. Texas Chainsaw Massacre was really good, and it didn't show a lot necessarily, but in terms of like being over the top with its gore, but just the image of the girl being hung on the meat hook was kind of like, ugh, just. And again, they didn't show the hook going in, but just the image of it just looked nasty, and it's just a really impressive effect. So yeah, there's lots of movies with great gore effects, and those are some of my favorite ones. What is that? Madman JL. Wrestling question. If Destination America dropped TNA, how would that affect Ring of Honor? Ring of Honor would lose its lead-in because they're not playing in prime time anymore. Maybe Ring of Honor would get the prime time spot over TNA if that happened. I'm not sure. But I'm not really sure how that would affect Ring of Honor beyond that because it's not like... I don't know. Destination America is a weird channel. They got all types of weird shit on there. That's like hunting Bigfoot and live exorcisms and all sorts of crazy crap. But yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the effect on Ring of Honor would be, except maybe create an opportunity for them to get a better time slot. But again, I just shrug my shoulders at it. I don't really know. Do you think the Redskins, non-wrestling question, do you think the Redskins are a poorly run organization? Yeah, I do. And I'm not going to get into the whole racism part of the name and all of that, but Dan Snyder is not a very good owner. When you look at the trades and the free agency pickups that they've made over the years and the whole Robert Griffin III move, which turned out to be a mistake, didn't really pan out, although Alfred Morris's has worked out. I think Alfred Morris is great, but yeah, it's just... They're a poorly run organization, and most Redskin fans would tell you they are a poorly run organization. So, yeah, that's the Redskins. Where was I? All right. Ace Shock, wrestling question: Would it have been a good idea for TNA to sign Paul Heyman, especially considering how the Hogan Bischoff thing worked out? Absolutely, it would have been a good idea. For a creative thing, yes. To put him in charge of creative, yes, it would have been a good idea to sign Heyman because, A, Heyman couldn't have possibly done any worse than what they ended up doing, and B, Heyman is a very creative mind and is good at getting the most out of the least and creating genuinely interesting scenarios. So I would have absolutely given him a chance to run the creative side of things on TNA, and I can't believe they would pass him up and go for Vince Russo. It just boggles my mind. I don't get it. But yeah, I don't get it. So absolutely, I would have put Heyman in charge of creative, at least given him a chance. And like I said, he couldn't have done any worse. Non-wrestling question: Will you be seeing Deadpool and Suicide Squad? Absolutely. Deadpool looks great. I mean, it looks like they really got the character right on that one. And the trailers I've seen so far, it looks like they've got everything down. And hopefully everything works out perfectly there. Suicide Squad, I'm going to see it out of curiosity. Again, the trailer, some things I liked, some things I didn't. I really like the casting on Amanda Waller. I think that was really good casting there to get... forget that actress's name. She's on How to Get Away with Murder, but she's a great actress, and I think she's a good pick for that. Better than the casting in Arrow, where they made her hot, which is really weird that they went out of their way to make Amanda Waller like smoking hot. Like, I just don't understand that casting at all. But not that she's a bad actress. It's just like, why is Amanda Waller hot? That's weird. It's so weird, but. And when somebody like sitting around thinking it's like Amanda Waller, great character, but she needs to be hot. That's the thing. But anyway, Suicide Squad. It's I hope it's good. I hope it works out, and hopefully it gets the DC cinematic universe off on a good start because we'll have the Batman Superman movie by that point, but Suicide Squad is going to be the first one outside of like their big heavy hitters like Batman and Superman that they're going to try, and could be kind of their version of the Guardians of the Galaxy in a way, where it's a big risk to be doing that one. And again, I hope it works out and I hope it's good, but I'll definitely be seeing it, sure. Funny things are funny. 1, 2, 3. Wrestling question, would you have liked the following Mania matches? And he listed a bunch of Mania matches. I have the list right here. Would you have liked for these WrestleMania matches to take place? Vader versus Mankind at WrestleMania 13. Yes, because that show needed more of a spark to it. And I think Vader versus Mankind would have been a good match to do, good feud. And I think they could have had a good match because they had good matches back in WCW. Their Halloween Havoc 93 match stands out to me. Hogan versus Warrior 2 at WrestleMania 7. Not really, because we would have lost Warrior Savage in the career-ending match. And I kind of like that Hogan Warrior only happened the one time. It helps it stand out more and makes it more special. So, no, that one didn't really need that one. Austin versus Triple H at 19. Maybe. It would have been Austin's last match regardless. So maybe a match with Triple H would have been good. It would have been fine. Would have been... better than watching Booker T get chopped out. But, the Booker T Triple H match was good. And Rock versus Austin 3 was really good, but, maybe. That's a maybe. We'll follow that one as a maybe. That would have been interesting if they'd gone that route. Austin versus Rock versus Triple H at WrestleMania X7. I actually thought at the time they were going to do that match. I didn't think they were going to go with Rock and Austin one-on-one, so I was surprised that they didn't do the triple threat. But no, I would have preferred Austin Rock one-on-one. I think that was a bigger match. I think it was the better match to do. And I think that match is great, except for the ending. I'm not a fan of the Austin heel turn, but other than that, it's one of the very best WrestleMania matches ever. Brett versus Austin at 14. No, because the situation with Austin and Michaels for the title was so perfect that I think I would have preferred keeping it the same. So Brett and Austin didn't really need another WrestleMania rematch. I think it was fine. And even if the Montreal Screwjob didn't happen, we wouldn't have gotten the Vince McMahon character. We wouldn't have gotten that little bit of heat put on Shawn Michaels to lead him into the WrestleMania main event. So, he didn't need Brett and Austin at 14. Sting versus Kurt Angle at WrestleMania X8. That's a maybe. That would have been interesting. Angle wouldn't have been my first choice for a WrestleMania opponent for Sting. I would have gone with Undertaker, obviously, especially back then at the time. I probably would have concocted a whole angle where Sting would have been the guy to bring the dead man Undertaker back after he'd been the American Badass for 2 years. I probably would have done something like that with it. But Sting versus Angle would have been a good match, I think, and they did have really good matches. Their Bound for Glory match at TNA is fantastic. So to have that match at a WrestleMania, I think would have been fine. That would have been good. And finally, would you have wanted John Cena versus Randy Orton at WrestleMania 27? Fuck no is the answer to that. No, absolutely not. Yeah, and even though considering we got Cena versus Miz, which was kind of a mess, just Cena Orton is not the solution to that problem. No, just no. So there's that. And where did I leave off? Non-wrestling question. What Marvel or DC film are you most looking forward to? And I kind of answered that with Infinity Gauntlet because the DC ones have all these kind of question marks surrounding them, and Infinity Gauntlet is the one that we're really looking forward to and has been built up as great as it has been. So that's my answer for that one. I would also throw Deadpool up there because it looks like it's going to be really great. And Age of Apocalypse looks like it could be really good too. So again, here's hoping. But those are some of the ones I'm looking forward to. Weapon Alex, wrestling question. Are you worried about Bayley when she moves up to the main roster? Yes, I have a fear that they are going to destroy her character because they're going to take that one aspect to her that she's a hugger and she's all nice and good and basically just turn her into girl John Cena. Or even worse, just make her a cartoon character and make her she just walks around hugging people because she's got this obsessive compulsive disorder to hug people. Which, if you watch Bayley on NXT, that's not her at all. She hugs people and she's very bright and colorful and happy, but it feels like that's her legitimate personality. She feels like a real person, and I have this horrible feeling that would get lost on the main roster, and they would just make her into a cartoon character. But again, time will tell. Non-wrestling question: what's your favorite Pixar movie? It's weird because Pixar makes so many great movies. It's hard to pick a favorite, but. WALL-E's great, Up is great, Finding Nemo is great. Finding Nemo was so good at the time, I thought they'd never top it. I was like, that's going to be their magnum opus. They can never make another movie as good as that one, and they've done it. The Toy Story movies are great, especially 3. I think 3 is the best one of that bunch. Inside Out was very good. Trying to think of some of the other ones that are like really high caliber. The Incredibles is a very, very good kick-ass superhero movie. It's a better Fantastic Four movie than the actual Fantastic Four movies, oddly enough. But if I had to pick a favorite, this might sound weird. I'm going to go with Ratatouille. I think Ratatouille is my favorite, and I'm not sure why. I think maybe it's because it's the least... Let me put it this way. It's the least... It's the movie that's in least need of animation. This is a movie that they probably could have done in live action and just gotten a CGI rat to do it and just done it that way. It's the most grounded of all the Pixar movies. So to make the most grounded movie they've ever made and to get so much emotion out of it and such wacky characters and such cartoony situations out of it, like that chase scene in the middle of the movie, and the food critic is such a great character. And just the whole situation of a rat cooking in the kitchen and all that stuff. It looks great, and the setting of France is beautiful. Like, Paris looks amazing in that movie. So it's a really funny movie. It's really emotional. The ending is one of the best endings to any movie ever. It has that bittersweet aspect to it, but it also has that satisfaction of, again, just the food critic's review is one of the best things I've ever seen in a movie. So many great aspects to it. It's funny, it's heartfelt, it's emotional. It does everything that Pixar does really, really well. It's creative. And it's a movie I didn't think was going to be that good, and I just fell in love with it. And it's very good. So yeah, Ratatouille. I think that's my favorite. Ahmed Algalaf. Wrestling question. Is Triple H given too much credit for NXT? Maybe. I don't know what the creative process for NXT is. I don't know who influences what and who does what or whatever, but I do know that Triple H pushes the holy fuck out of NXT, and that level of promotion that he puts into it gives it more of a spark. So I will definitely give Triple H credit for that. I don't know creatively how involved he is, but as far as pushing it and promoting it, Triple H does a lot for that, and I think that brought a lot of eyeballs to NXT. So I will definitely give him credit for that. I also think if I had to guess, he probably also has a lot to do with scouting talent and pushing guys and certain things like that. So, and obviously the talents he scouts have done really well. So, there's that. So, yeah, I think Triple H deserves credit for NXT. Is it too much? I don't really know. I'd have to be behind the scenes to really get a feel for what goes on. Non-wrestling question. Rank the Jurassic Park movies. Number 1 is the best, by far, by a huge margin. There's not even a close second. Jurassic World is the best of the sequels. Has a lot of flaws, but overall did more things right and is a very fun movie in its own right. So overall, Jurassic World is the best of the sequels. 3 is pointless and mostly forgettable, and 2 has like 1 or 2 good scenes in it, but overall is extremely stupid. So 2 is probably the worst. 3 is forgettable, and by virtue isn't as annoying as 2. So they're the 2 worst, and then the second best is Jurassic World, and by far the best is the original. Like I said, there's not even a close second. Stone Cold 1000. Wrestling question. If you could pick 2 stars from any era for a dream match, what would it be and who would go over? There's a lot of dream matches I'd like to see, actually. I would have loved to have gotten Ricky Steamboat versus Shawn Michaels at some point. Bruno versus Hogan would have been a really interesting one. Austin versus Hogan would have been interesting. Sting versus Undertaker, like 15 years ago, would have been very interesting. How about Undertaker versus Andre the Giant? I think that would have been a really interesting encounter. Like, that would have been really, really huge. Trying to think of some other ones. Randy Savage versus... who was I thinking of? Randy Savage versus a lot of the Attitude Era guys, I think would have been great. To see, like, Austin working with guys like Randy Savage and Roddy Piper, I think, like, in their prime, like a Randy Savage and a Roddy Piper in their prime, I think would have been really interesting and made for some great TV and great interactions and great character interactions. Randy Savage versus Jericho is one that I would have really liked to have seen. What were some other ones? There's so many. Sting versus. I was thinking of this one the other. What was it? I think it was Sting versus Shawn Michaels. Yeah, Sting versus Shawn Michaels I think would have been a really good one. And Rock versus Shawn Michaels in a real match. That's one that I think would have been very good as well. Who goes over? I guess in those situations it doesn't really matter. It's just I would have just enjoyed the show and just loved what I'd seen. So, yeah, those are my picks. And non-wrestling question. In the King Kong vs. Godzilla remake, I'm getting asked about that a lot. Gee, I wonder why. How would you have King Kong be the same size as Godzilla? Or how would you reconcile King Kong being the same size as Godzilla? I would just do it. To me, it's just not that big of a deal. It's like, all right, you're doing a crossover between two characters that hardly ever interact and didn't initially exist in the same universe. So if you're incorporating King Kong into the Godzilla universe, then he would have to be of similar size to Godzilla just to make it a fair fight. So to me, it's like, I was just willing to go along with it and have fun with it. And if the sequel or if the remake of King Kong vs. Godzilla does something similar, I'm just make him the same size as Godzilla. I don't think it's that big of a deal. He won't be big enough to climb up the Empire State Building, but he'll be much too tall for that. But it's just I'd rather have Kong grow up to be Godzilla's size than Godzilla shrink down to be his size. That would no. Godzilla's the size that needs to be kept intact. It's kind of like people talk about an Alien versus Predator movie and what went wrong with the first two attempts and all that other stuff. To me, it's like the big mistake that they made with the AVP movies is that they didn't set it in the Alien universe. They just set it on normal modern day Earth, which to me was the mistake. That movie really needed to be set in the Alien universe with the technology and the settings that we're familiar with from the Alien universe. Ripley should have probably been included. I doubt Sigourney Weaver would have turned it down. So that's because Alien is the more interesting universe. So that's to me what the crossover should have been. And the fact that they didn't do that, I just don't understand. So if you're doing a King Kong vs. Godzilla remake, it's got to be, it should be incorporated into the Godzilla universe because that's richer and has more potential for more monsters and all sorts of other crazy stuff. And if you're going to incorporate King Kong into the Godzilla universe, he has to be of comparable size to all the monsters involved. So yeah, I just never had a problem with it. I know a lot of fans did, but never bugged me. And if they made him the same size as Godzilla, it wouldn't bug me one bit. Trevor Abney, wrestling question. Top favorite main eventer, mid-carder, and tag team of all time from WCW, WWE, and ECW. That covers a lot of ground, but here we go. WWE, favorite top guy? Probably Randy Savage. I think he was the most complete performer in terms of being just a unique and wacky personality, a colorful character, but also one of the best workers you could possibly imagine. He was great. Kurt Hennig is probably my favorite mid-carder. When I think of Intercontinental Champions, he's the guy I think of. He was just the Intercontinental Champion to me, and he was great in that role. Tag teams, that covers a little bit more ground. The Hart Foundation, Legion of Doom, Demolition, Bulldogs, British Bulldogs, Edge and Christian, the Hardys, the Dudleys, teams like that. Any one of those would work as a favorite. Probably, it's either the Hart Foundation or Edge and Christian probably is my favorite tag team in WWE history. For WCW, top guy is Sting, without a doubt. I've sucked up the Sting so many times, it's ridiculous. Chris Jericho was probably my favorite mid-carder in WCW, and he's one of the big drop balls that they have. But he was great. When he was Cruiserweight Champion, he was the best Cruiserweight Champion they ever had. He was great, and he really came to life as a character in WCW, I think. Favorite tag team? Probably the Steiner brothers. Either of them. I actually really liked Harlem Heat, too. But a lot of people would say the Outsiders. I think of them as part of the group of the NWO and not so much as like a tag team on their own. It's really, really hard to explain that. But as far as like my favorite tag team, the Steiner brothers, they were probably my favorite. ECW, favorite top guy, probably Raven. I also really like Shane Douglas as ECW champion. He was kind of like 2000 Triple H before 2000 Triple H rolled around. I really liked his character and his presentation and how he carried himself as champion. But Raven was such a big part of so many big storylines and even, played a big role in the first ECW pay-per-view. and did great in that role. That Raven has to be considered one of the best top guys in ECW history. Favorite mid-carder? Well, he was their television champion for an eternity, and nobody seemed to mind. Rob Van Dam, he was like the big up-and-coming guy, like this big, young, exciting talent that ECW had picked up, and yeah, he was great. He was very exciting. His matches with Jerry Lynn and all the crazy things he would do, and just a really unique talent. He's more of a spot guy, and I've said that before, but you know, when he was put in the right situation with the right guys, he could be really exciting. And yeah, his matches were, he was just a more exciting, charismatic guy than most of the other guys that were around in ECW. A company that was loaded with interesting characters and fun talents and all sorts of other things. And favorite tag team in ECW history, the Dudleys. I mean, they're the obvious ones to go with. I mean, I know the Eliminators were really good. I know a lot of people like the Gangsters, but I'm sorry, the Gangstas. But no, the Dudleys, they were the best tag team in ECW history, pretty much by default. All right. And non-wrestling question: do you watch college football, and if so, who is your team? I watch it from time to time. I'm not really big into college football, and whenever I do watch it, I typically watch it just to like kind of scout guys and see. It's like, oh, I wonder who's gonna go to the NFL, and I'll watch a game on like a Saturday, like I'll go to a Maryland game or something like that just for fun, and it's always fun to watch. It's just that NFL, that's just the big league to me, and I just grew up a big NFL fan, so it's hard for me to latch on to other football as strongly as the NFL, which I guess is how some people feel about the WWE and other wrestling companies, so I guess I can't get mad at them for that. But as far as college football goes, my dad went to Wake Forest, and because of that, we're a Wake Forest family, and we root for Wake Forest, although not always the best football team. You know, I typically tend to root for some of the like Ohio State. I have a lot of friends from Ohio State, so I typically root for them as well. So yeah, you know, not overly engaged or passionate about college football, but I do watch it from time to time, and it is fun. So yeah. Final questions coming in from the Angry Mark. Wrestling question: should Bo Dallas join the New Day? I wouldn't mind if they did a situation where they were like friends with each other, kind of like what Team Eck was back in the day, Edge, Christian, and Kurt Angle, where they weren't officially a team, but they were friends with each other, and then they added Rhino to it. It was Team Wreck, and those were the good old days. But anyway, it's yeah, I would prefer it to be a situation like that rather than just straight up adding Bo Dallas to the New Day, because right now I think the New Day is so good on their own, and the three have such good chemistry together that I like to just keep them by themselves and just keep them doing their own thing. And if they want to interact them with Bo Dallas and form temporary partnerships and have them actually become friends, that would be great. I would be fine with that. But officially adding him to the New Day, I wouldn't be too big a fan of. But, you know. And the final question, non-wrestling question: what are your favorite childhood toys? Let me show you. I'll be right back. Got these off of eBay a couple years ago. When I was a kid, my favorite action figure toy lines were Ninja Turtles, and the other one was the Masters of the Universe line. I think the Masters of the Universe line had a lot of great, like, gimmicky, kind of cartoony characters. Yeah, most of them had the same torso. But I just really liked that each character had its own gimmick, its own look and everything, and just really just colorful set of toys. And the Ninja Turtles one was the only other line that was close to it, and actually was very good at it. You know, the toys were the perfect size, they were posable, they were durable, all sorts of great stuff. And my favorite one from the Masters of the Universe line, it was my favorite childhood toy, Modulok. And he was a member of the Evil Horde, and I got him off of eBay for a very good price. And I got all the pieces to him and everything for a very good price. And he was released as part of the Horde toy line. Let's see if I can kind of bring the camera down a little bit. There we go. You can kind of see a little bit more. And you know, this was at the point where they were really starting to think outside the box and give the toys their own unique gimmick. And Modulok had the greatest gimmick ever for any of the He-Man toys. Let me show you what it was. Take him apart. break him down into every piece. And I cannot tell you how many hours of my childhood were spent playing with this damn thing. It was great for being on road trips, too, because you could just sit there, pull out Modulok, and just start pulling him apart and doing all sorts of great stuff with him. Now, having all the pieces separated, now let's do something like this. Sorry, this might take a while, but I'm just kind of doing weird crap. And the way the toy is set up, you could pull the legs up, the legs off and the arms off and all sorts of weird stuff. So there's really like a lot of different possibilities that you can create with this thing. Yeah, which made it really expanded on my creativity as a kid. Like really, I was always trying to find out new ways to put Modulok together and do different things with him. Where's the other leg? There we go. Alright, and there's I didn't use all the pieces, but let's put a tail on him. Why not? And you notice that both heads from both separate figures are on there. Yeah, and this was just such a cool idea to me, because just the idea that you could just make the toy any way you wanted it to, and it really gave it a lot of play value when you were having it interact and creating stories with all the other He-Man toys. So, yeah, this little guy is just a lot of fond memories of playing with this thing, and I was happy to get him again over eBay, and he makes a great, like, I keep them on my shelf mostly as a decoration, and sometimes, when I'm just trying to kill time, or I'm waiting for something to download, or I'm waiting for the pizza to get here or something, I'll just start pulling them apart and just putting them back together again. It's a great stress reliever, too. This is actually a great office toy, believe it or not. And it was such a great idea that I kind of felt like Mattel probably could have done an entire line of toys with this same gimmick and with different looks and body parts, and actually they kind of expanded on it a little bit. There was a sequel toy, I guess we'll say. They eventually released Multibot, which has the exact same gimmick. And you can also pull apart Multibot and do different things with him. Again, you're getting an insight into how I spend my free time sometimes when I'm bored. Just pull out Modulok and Multibot and start playing. Here we go. Okay. And Multibot, actually, the fact that he looks completely different from Modulok, and, there's different colors and different, like, Modulok is mostly all red, but Multibot, there's, like, different colors of orange and green and blue, so, and he's a robot, whereas Modulok was all organic, so, again, it just a different take on it, and just a really interesting creation all around. Yeah, let's put that on there. And I'm just making this up on the fly, so it might not be my best work, but there's that. What was I thinking? There's that piece right here. All right. Thank God this is the last question. Y'all are probably looking at this right now. I'm sure a lot of people are probably switched off the video at this point. What the fuck is he doing? He's lost his mind. Yep. And another great thing about Modulok about Multibot that gives him an advantage over Modulok, he came with two torsos. Modulok did not. He only came with the one torso piece, so you couldn't really... it was limiting to a degree of what you could ultimately do with both heads and everything. But here they gave Multibot two torsos, and I've just created like this hideous robot insect thing with 6 legs and 2 torsos. It's yeah, ugly. And an even better part to give him even more playability And this is kind of builds off of my whole idea of they could have really made an entire toy line off of this because I'll keep this. Good. Where's the other connector piece? Okay. Here we go. Right. On there. Okay, this is a rush job, so I've made far more complex creations than this, but you could actually combine Modulock and Multibot. I believe that it had a name like forget what it was. It was Mega Beast, I think it was called. That was the combined form of the two, and you could having both of these together, Modulock and Multibot, created endless possibilities of things you could do with the different toys. So yeah, this thing, these two buddies, they were a big part of my childhood, and for a toy line that I already had so much appreciation for, these were the ones that really gave me the most fun. But in addition to action figures, I was also really big into Hot Wheels. I liked collecting cars. I don't have any of my old Hot Wheels anymore. That gave those away years ago. But yeah, I also was big into, because I was big into Star Wars, I was big into the Star Wars toy line. And actually, I was also a huge Lego fan, and still am a huge Lego fan. I love Legos, because I guess, and this builds into my appreciation for Modulock and Multibot. I love creating and building things and, you know, doing all sorts of things like that. And actually, I have one Lego piece that also ties into my love of Star Wars. Let me go get that real quick. I'll be right back. Alrighty. Look at this thing right here. Lego Death Star. See if I can get it. Yeah. Lego Death Star. One of my most shameful purchases of all time. But I was celebrating a big life event. And I had saved the money, and I got a special deal for it. I had a gift card to the Lego store. And I was like, you know what? Buying that fucking Death Star. And that thing took me, let's see if I can... Yeah, right there on the table. It looks great, doesn't it? That thing... Right, let's keep it in frame. That big fucking Lego Death Star took me about four 3-hour sessions to put the whole thing together. And actually, when I moved into this apartment, instead of having it all in one piece, because, that thing looks like... trust me, little pieces would come off of this thing if I just kept it all together. So I put it all in a box, and I took it apart in big chunks to where I thought it'll all be safe because it'll all be in the plastic bin, and I'll be able to put it together in like 15 minutes tops. And it actually took me an additional 9 hours to put the whole thing together, because every time I tried to put it back together, I had pieces left over, and I was like, I shouldn't have pieces left over. So I had to pretty much walk through the instruction booklet step by step and get the whole thing put back together. But so those were my favorite childhood toys. I still have some of them because I'm a big kid, so I fight it. But yeah, thankfully that is the last question. No more bizarreness from me. Was a really long video as expected. But once again, thank you all for sending in your questions. Hope you enjoyed this video, and I will be back on this channel with more for you in the coming days. So be on the lookout for that. But until then, y'all have a good one. And my sincerest apologies to Matt Davies. I was, I'd finished filming the video, and I was ready to, put everything together, wrap it up, and get ready to post it. And then I was going over my notes again, and I realized I did not answer your non-wrestling questions. So I apologize for that, but I managed to catch that little mistake before I posted the video, so I'm just going to tack it on right here at the end. Matt Davies, non-wrestling question. What are your top 5 favorite Marvel movies and your top 5 least favorite Marvel movies? And by Marvel, I mean the Marvel Cinematic Universe. So obviously the Raimi Spider-Man films and the X-Men films don't really count into that, and any other Marvel characters that got movies outside of the MCU. I think overall the MCU has been pretty damn good. I mean, they've been kind of the standard bearer for comic book films for a while now, and you know, they don't always make the best movies, but truthfully, out of all the movies they've done, I don't think any of them are bad. Like, truly bad. Like, even their weakest ones, that people would say are their weakest ones, I look at and just go, I mean, they're not the worst thing ever, you know? I lived through fucking, you know, Batman and Robin, Superman 4, Spawn, which I think might be the number one worst. That one is awful, and if you don't believe me, go and watch it. And not only is the movie a complete train wreck, but it's even worse now because the CGI special effects are so unbelievably bad. Like, they do not hold up at all, to the point that it's just insulting almost that this movie got made. So I think Spawn might be the number one worst. So I don't think any of the Marvel movies, even their weakest ones, are anywhere near being among the worst comic book films ever made. You know, that's up for debate. That's really up to you guys and what you think. But if I had to pick my 5 favorites, my number 1 is Captain America Winter Soldier. That movie was great. I just rewatched it a few weeks ago, and I'm like, yep, motherfucker holds up like a motherfucker holds up. And I think what I liked about it is that it was the least CGI dependent of all the Marvel movies. And there was still CGI in it, obviously, but it wasn't as reliant on it as previous Marvel films, and there was more of an emphasis on down and dirty, realistic action sequences, various car chases and big fight scenes and all sorts of stuff, and it was very enjoyable. But that made it more exciting to me. Other aspects to it, I liked the relationships between the characters. I thought was great. Having Captain America interact with Falcon and Black Widow, you know, and Nick Fury had some very interesting relationships going on there. The way the Winter Soldier tied in was very good. I thought the Winter Soldier himself he's barely in the movie, but he leaves an impression, which is, you know, a very good thing. The mystery that they unravel, I think, is very good. In fact, so good that it took Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which was like a middle-of-the-road type of show, and then once it catches up to Winter Soldier, the show becomes amazing. And, yeah, so Winter Soldier was so good that it made Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. an awesome show. And it just, everything associated with it just gets better. And I love that movie. I think Winter Soldier is their number 1 best so far. And it's really, the MCU, probably the biggest thing, the biggest impact that the MCU has had on me is that it's really made me appreciate Captain America. And he's really become my favorite Avenger, just through the movies. I think Chris Evans does a terrific job with the role. I think, and both movies they've done have been really good. But Winter Soldier was especially great, and I loved it. So, and it made me an even bigger Cap fan. So, you know, points for that one. Number 2 best, I'm going to give to Iron Man, the first one. Probably the best superhero origin movie ever done. Some people would say the first Raimi Spider-Man. Some people would say Batman Begins. Some people would say the Dick Donner Superman movie. All very good. Well, I think Batman Begins is a little... I've talked about this before. I think it's a little overrated. But, you know, when I think of just well-executed origin stories for superheroes, I think Iron Man probably did it the best. And really, not only as an origin for the Iron Man character, but also for the MCU as a whole. It was really a good kind of jump-starter type of film to kick everything off with. So that one, I'm giving the number 2 spot. Number 3, I'm going to give to Guardians of the Galaxy, a movie that was a big risk just because it's not a very well-known property. At least it wasn't when the movie was in production. It's not one of their more well-known titles, but they decided to do it, and they delivered just a really fun space adventure type of film, and also gave modern generations some music appreciation courses as well, so that was always appreciated. And again, the relationships between the characters is very strong, the jokes are very good, and it's overall just a really fun movie, and just a blast to watch. Number 4, I'm going to give to the Avengers just because it was something that no comic book fan ever thought was possible. Just taking all the superheroes that they've done in films up to that point and combine them all into one movie. Very ambitious, very risky, and I felt like they pulled it off. Just the action sequences and the character interactions, and Loki as the villain was fantastic, and it's just a very exciting film, and just a film that nobody thought would ever happen. So that makes it historic and makes it stand out all on its own. Right off the bat. And number 5, again, I'm a big Cap fan, so I'm going to give it to Captain America, the First Avenger. I love 1940s type of period piece films. I love The Rocketeer. I think that's an underrated movie. And I don't know, there's something about that time period. I think Agent Carter's a great show because it's set in that time period. And there's just, I don't know, there's just something about it that just works for me, and it worked for Cap too. So really like the first Cap film. And yeah, those are my top 5 favorites. Least favorites, everybody says Iron Man 2, and I agree. I think the first 45 minutes of Iron Man 2 were great, and then it kind of shifts focus into setting up the Avengers and further establishing S.H.I.E.L.D. instead of working with what they'd already established, like Whiplash and all of that stuff. Like, all the stuff that the movie had set up seemed to be pushed to the wayside to further set up the Avengers. It's like, kind of lost your focus there a little bit. But, again, it's not a terrible movie. It's just not probably their weakest one. Thor: The Dark World is another one. The villain in that movie is extremely weak. Just the most generic evil McEvil bad guy ever. Just boring as fuck. But you had Loki to counterbalance that. So Loki was great in the film and just a quip machine the entire time. Yeah, Thor: The Dark World, one of the weaker ones, but not bad by any means. It was overall like a fun fantasy film. It just wasn't, just not one of their stronger efforts. See, this is where it gets hard, because they're all so, like, they're all kind of close in quality in some ways. There's not a whole lot of deviations, especially when you get into the more middle of the road ones. A lot of people shit on Iron Man 3, and I can understand why, because of the twist, and I'm not going to go into details about the twist, but there was an aspect to the twist that I liked. And again, I don't want to dwell on spoilers too much, so I won't go into too much detail, but it almost works, and maybe that's another thing for another video, but the twist that they do in the film, which ticked a lot of people off, to me, it almost works, and I like the intent and the idea behind it. Maybe with a little extra work, it could have actually worked, but Iron Man 3, I like Iron Man 3, though, overall. It's again, very good action movie, overall, and very enjoyable for the most part. See, again, there's so little about the Marvel movies that there's not a whole lot to really, really, truly dislike. Ant-Man, not one of the better ones, but it's a fun romp. It's a fun movie overall, way better than I would have ever expected an Ant-Man film to be, especially for a film that was in production hell for as long as it was. Doesn't look like a movie that was in production hell. Some of the exposition's a little forced, some of the concepts are a little silly, but overall, it is a fun movie. So that one's not too bad. A lot of people shit on the Incredible Hulk movie. I think that movie just had the misfortune of being sandwiched in between Iron Man and The Dark Knight, which came out later that year. And that's the one that kind of got lost in the shuffle. That and Hellboy 2 was another one. It came out the week before The Dark Knight, I think. And that kind of got washed away pretty quickly. And Hellboy 2's not bad. For my love of practical effects, I really appreciated that film for having so many creatures and monsters that were men in suits, and they look great, and they look outstanding, and I wish there'd be more of that, But, yeah, that was Incredible Hulk. I liked it. It's about as good an Incredible Hulk movie as you're going to get, I think. Really captured the tragedy of being afflicted with such a thing. I mean, Incredible Hulk is basically a werewolf story. And I felt like the Edward Norton movie kind of captured that. I've been told it's much better than the Ang Lee movie, but I've never seen the Ang Lee movie, so I can't really say. People tell me the Ang Lee movie's a piece of shit, but again, I can't say it. I know Jennifer Connelly's in it, and I love Jenny Jen, one of my first crushes. So it's amazing I haven't watched that movie, quite honestly, but yeah, Incredible Hulk, people say it's one of the worst ones. I'm like, it's all right. I'm so hard, like, the top 5 worst list is actually harder to do, but let's say Iron Man 2, Thor: The Dark World, Ant-Man maybe, maybe Iron Man 3, but again, I like that one. People shit on Age of Ultron too, but I didn't think that one was bad. It was just not as good as the last. It was just not as good as Winter Soldier or Guardians from the year before. So it was like not as good as those. So I think it had some tough acts to follow. But yeah, I liked Age of Ultron. I guess we'll just put number 5. Let's just put Incredible Hulk there, even though I like that movie. But yeah, tough. The top 5 bottom list was incredibly tough. But okay, that was the final question. Now I'm done. Peace out, everybody.